Chapter 971. Qin Chuan originally thought that he would have a heavy carapace on his back like the little armored dragon, but he never thought that the little armored dragon's carapace would actually turn into an extremely domineering battle armor in his hands. Qin Chuan took out a mirror and placed it in front of him, seriously admiring it. A domineering horned helmet, a dignified faceplate, a streamlined body, and mysterious and simple runes revolving around it. This battle armor is simply too cool, too cool. Qin Chuan looked at himself in the mirror with shining eyes. I feel that this battle armor is enough to raise my strength to the Dongshu stage. If I were to face the black-clothed man again, I would definitely be able to destroy him with a single punch. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the little armored dragon's face revealed a trace of pain. Its figure flashed and drilled into Qin Chuan's battle armor. In the next moment, Qin Chuan's figure appeared in the hurricane. However, under the protection of the battle armor, Qin Chuan's figure was only slightly unstable, but he did not suffer any injuries. The little armored dragon gave its carapace to me. It must be unable to withstand the attack of the hurricane, so it hid. Qin Chuan lowered his head and looked at the strange rune on his chest. He was very clear that the little armored dragon was currently within the rune. He could sense that the little armored dragon was currently sleepy again. All right, your mission is complete. If you want to sleep, then sleep. I really have to thank you for today. After we leave here, I will definitely take you to a feast and properly make it up to you. Qin Chuan chuckled, then asked the rune sword, how long will it take to absorb the power of the heavenly wind path? 3 days. After receiving a response, Qin Chuan smiled and muttered in a low voice, 3 days it is. Just as well, let me test how much this battle armor can raise my strength. Just as Qin Chuan was helping the rune sword absorb the power of the heavenly wind path, the people of Sunflower Planet far away in the Big Wood Galaxy finally discovered the problem of the Sunflower Path. Hai Feng's gaze was extremely gloomy as he stared at Hart, who was standing in front of him, and coldly said, "What did you just say? Is there a problem with Sunflower Path?" Hart nodded and said to Hai Feng, "I wasn't the one who discovered the problem. It was those talisman formation masters who were comprehending the Sunflower Dao. They said that besides its size, there was no difference between the Sunflower Dao and other sunflowers. It was completely an ordinary sunflower. How is this possible? Is there something wrong with someone's brain?" Hai Feng snorted coldly. "If you can't comprehend the Dao runes, then you're saying that there's something wrong with the Dao runes. What a joke. Mr. Haida, of course I wouldn't believe it if it was only one person who said that. However, all the talisman formation masters outside are saying the same thing." Hart felt a headache coming on. "I don't know what's going on either. That's why I came to find you. I want to go out with you to take a look." "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go and take a look." Hai Feng took the lead and left the camp, heading straight for Sunflower Path. He couldn't help but frown when he saw the crowd that was a kilometer away from Sunflower Path. All the talisman formation masters in the camp were already here. Could it be that there really was a problem with Sunflower Path? When he thought of this, Hai Feng subconsciously looked at Sunflower Path. In the past, Sunflower Path had always given him a very special feeling. It was as if he was looking up at a great and tiny existence. However, he didn't have this feeling at all now. In his eyes, Sunflower Path was just a sunflower. When he realized this, Hai Feng's expression suddenly became extremely unsightly. Even though he saw it with his own eyes, he still couldn't accept the fact that there was a problem with Sunflower Path. Sure enough, there's a problem. At this moment, Hart's expression was also solemn. "We have to find out what's going on." As he spoke, Hart's figure had already rushed within a kilometer of Sunflower Path. When Hai Feng saw this, he followed closely behind. The two of them landed in front of Sunflower Path almost at the same time and began to observe Sunflower Path at close range. "There's no sign of any injuries. There's also no sign of anyone moving. Hart looked at the ground and said in a deep voice, "Could it be that there's a problem with the root?" "Impossible. The root has been completely under our control since 100 years ago. If there's a problem, I'll be the first to receive news." Haifeng glanced at Hart with a gloomy gaze and said in a cold voice, "It must be the doing of those natives." Hart was slightly stunned when he heard this. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and exclaimed, "You're talking about the exchange of prisoners?" "That's right." Haifeng gnashed his teeth and said, "The reason why they chose to exchange prisoners within 100 meters of Sunflower Path isn't to prevent us from launching a sneak attack on them. It's to destroy the power of Sunflower Path. They're planning to fight to the death with us." Hearing Haifeng's words, Hart's expression changed again and again. He was present when the exchange took place, but he didn't find anything wrong with it. If what Haifeng said was true, then wouldn't he have to bear the greatest responsibility? When Haifeng saw the change in Hart's expression, he knew what Hart was thinking. He snorted and said, "Don't worry, this matter will only be the fault of those natives. You and I are innocent." Hart looked deeply at Haifeng and replied, "Let's go find those natives and see if there's any way to restore Sunflower Path to normal." "If it doesn't work," Haifeng narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "if they don't cooperate, then kill them." More than 2 days had passed, and the runic sword had already finished absorbing the power of the sky wind path. This was a little ahead of schedule. If it was in the past, Qin Chuan might have wanted to leave this place immediately. But now, he had completely fallen in love with this set of battle armor. He wished that the runic sword could absorb more power for 2 more days, so that he could familiarize himself with this set of battle armor. I've already given this set of battle armor a name. It's called the Holy King Armor. Qin Chuan laughed and said, "Let's just change the order of the Holy King Armor's name. Isn't that good?" However, Qin Chuan didn't get any response. The little armored dragon was sleeping, and the runic sword was busy digesting the power of Sky Wind Path. It didn't have time to respond to Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan rubbed his nose awkwardly. Then, with a thought, his figure flashed and he appeared 1,000 li away. As expected, when I'm wearing the Holy King armor, I can use the little armored dragon's divine ability. Qin Chuan's face was filled with excitement. Shadow shift, I can do it now too. However, Qin Chuan didn't get to be happy for long. The Holy King armor on his body turned into a stream of light and slowly disappeared. It returned to the little armored dragon's body and became a shell. The little armored dragon also returned to Qin Chuan's brain and continued to sleep while hugging the Yao core. Chapter 972. The matter of the runic sword absorbing the power of the Skywind Path had been successfully completed, and Qin Chuan's journey of comprehending Tao runes had come to an end. When Qin Chuan left the Skywind Path and returned to the camp, he found that everyone was whispering to each other, as if something big had happened. When Qin Chuan found someone familiar and asked, he found out that the Sunflower Path had lost its power. The Sunflower Path is a Tao rune. How could it suddenly lose its power? This is no small matter. If news of this spreads, the entire Tron Nebula will be shaken. Could it really be as the rumors say that it was done by those natives? But isn't the Sunflower Path their god? Why would they do something like killing a god? Listening to the discussions around him, Qin Chuan's originally good mood could not help but become somewhat heavy. Now that the Sunflower Path's loss of power had been discovered, the great majority government would definitely launch an investigation. If Gouda betrayed him, then his situation would become very bad. I hope they can't find anything, and Gouda can return to his Sunflower God's side as he wished. Then I can be at ease. Qin Chuan took a deep breath, and then let out a long breath. Now that things had already happened, it was useless for him to worry, so he might as well relax a little. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the runic sword in his mind suddenly asked him to return to his room, as if it had something very important to tell him. Qin Chuan did not hesitate to return to his room, and set up several talisman formations in the room to prevent peeping. After confirming that there were no problems, he took the initiative to contact the runic sword. "Big brother, what's the situation this time?" The runic sword did not respond to Qin Chuan's question, but slowly inscribed an extremely mysterious rune in front of Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan looked at the rune that was emitting a lustrous green light, and could not help but reveal a look of shock on his face. This familiar feeling, could it be the sunflower path? Just as this thought appeared in Qin Chuan's mind, sunflower path suddenly collapsed, turning into countless green dots of light that surged into his brain, turning into a green seed that was planted in his brain. It took root and sprouted, quickly growing into a small sapling, and at a speed visible to the naked eye, it continued to grow into a towering tree. At this moment, Qin Chuan clearly felt that there was something new in his memory. World of Wood. Qin Chuan abruptly opened his eyes, and a sharp glint flashed through his eyes. He was both excited and in disbelief. He had actually comprehended the Sunflower Tao in such a short period of time, and he had even obtained the method to inscribe a Class 5 combat array. This is unbelievable. Qin Chuan's face was full of excitement. Doesn't this mean that after the rune sword completely digests the power of the sky wind path, I will be able to comprehend the sky wind path and obtain a level 5 wind battle formation? Qin Chuan dared to guarantee that there was absolutely no one in this world who could comprehend Tao inscriptions faster than him. In the face of Qin Chuan's speculation, the rune sword gave an extremely affirmative answer. That's right, that's it. What was even more amazing was that the combat array that Qin Chuan mastered could be upgraded as his strength increased. Currently, the World of Wood was indeed a Class 5 combat array, but when Qin Chuan became a powerful practitioner of the Dongshu stage, the World of Wood would be upgraded to a Class 6 combat array. If Qin Chuan became a Universe Overlord, the World of Wood would be upgraded to a Class 7 combat array. After receiving the rune sword's response, Qin Chuan felt that he was about to burst with joy. Not only did he comprehend the Tao inscriptions in an instant, but he also obtained a combat array that could be upgraded as his strength increased. This was simply too amazing. Is this the life of a cheat? Qin Chuan jumped up in excitement. This is simply too awesome. Qin Chuan was very clear in his heart that this was only the beginning. As he helped the rune sword absorb more Tao inscriptions in the future, he would be able to comprehend more Tao inscriptions and obtain more combat arrays. His strength would also become stronger and stronger. However, the only regret is that I still have to learn this Class 5 combat array myself. I can't directly master it. Qin Chuan smacked his lips with a dissatisfied expression. Seeing Qin Chuan's greedy and insatiable look, the rune sword almost wanted to take back the benefits it had just given Qin Chuan. It had never seen such a shameless person in this world. Just as Qin Chuan was learning the World of Wood, Hai Feng and Heart finally found Gouda. "Gouda, what did you do to Sunflower Path?" Hai Feng angrily glared at Gouda. "If you can't give me an explanation today, I will kill all of you natives." Heart added, "Gouda, you better cooperate with us. Don't do anything irrational. You definitely don't want all of your clansmen to die, right?" Facing Hai Feng and Heart's threats, Gouda appeared very calm. He indifferently said to the two, "God Sunflower has lost its power. It is still our God Sunflower, but it is no longer your Sunflower Path. You came to find me in hopes that I can help God Sunflower recover its divine power and continue to be your Sunflower Path, right?" Hearing Gouda's words, Heart slightly narrowed his eyes and asked, "So this was really done by you?" Gouda shook his head and replied, "I didn't do it, but it is related to me and the entire sunflower race." Hai Feng immediately said, "Since it is related to you, then tell us what is going on." Facing the aggressive Hai Feng, Gouda's face revealed a trace of sadness. His tone was extremely pained as he said, God Sunflower has lost the worship and prayers of its people. Its divine power has been lost, and after thousands of years, its divine power has naturally dissipated. Hearing Gouda's answer and seeing the genuine sadness on Gouda's face, Heart couldn't help but frown. You mean to say that the reason why Sunflower Path lost its power is because it didn't have the worship and prayers of you people? God Sunflower is a god because it has us who believe in it. Now that we have distanced ourselves from God Sunflower is naturally no longer God Sunflower. Gouda looked at Hai Feng and Heart and said in a subtle tone, if we want God Sunflower to regain its divine power, then we must get close to God Sunflower and worship it day and night. Perhaps after thousands of years, God Sunflower will once again display its divine power, and the light of God will once again shine upon this world. Hai Feng and Heart were stunned by Gouda's words. For a moment, they didn't know how to deal with this matter. The only thing they could do now was to report this matter to their superiors and wait for their reply before making a decision. Chapter 973. 1 month passed quickly. Qin Chuan and the others boarded the spaceship and prepared to return to Tran City. Compared to the others, Qin Chuan was in a much better mood. According to the rune sword, it's not easy to find out that Sky Wind Path has lost its power. First of all, Sky Wind Path is huge. Very few people can get within 1,000 miles of Sky Wind Path and notice the changes in its core. Second of all, Sky Wind Path is always on the move. It's very difficult to comprehend Sky Wind Path, so it's normal that it hasn't made any progress for a long time. According to the calculations of the runic swords, as long as no one who knows the Sky Wind Path particularly well enters within 100 miles of the Sky Wind Path, no one will notice anything wrong. Even so, almost everyone knows that the Sunflower Path has lost its power. I can't rule out the possibility of those powerful forces sending people to investigate the Heavenly Wind Path. So, it's best for me to be careful. If it's not necessary, I shouldn't expose the fact that I've already comprehended the Tao rune to avoid arousing suspicion. While Qin Chuan was sitting in the corner of the hall and thinking about these questions, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him and said in a low voice, Mr. Qin, 7th Elder invites you to his room for a chat. Hearing this, Qin Chuan's eyes moved slightly and he replied, Lead the way, we'll go right away. After arriving at Tu Shan Yu's room, Qin Chuan looked at Tu Shan Yu who was making tea. His mentality was completely different from before. Before, when facing Tu Shan family, he had no power to fight back. All he could do was try his best to deal with them. But now, he had learned the Tao of Tao and mastered a powerful battle formation. Therefore, he was more than confident now. If Tu Shan family made any excessive request to him, he would cut off all ties with them without any hesitation. By then, if Tu Shan family wanted to do anything to him, they should be prepared to have their teeth broken by him. Qin Chuan, have a seat. Seeing Qin Chuan walk in, Tu Shan Yu smiled and invited him to sit down. Looking at the smile on Qin Chuan's face, Tu Shan Yu was suddenly confused. He felt that something was different about Qin Chuan, but he couldn't tell what exactly. 7th Elder, you invited me here to talk about cooperation, right? Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Tu Shan Yu, when we get back to Trang City, I will fulfill my promise. I will carry out the experiment and cooperate with you. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Tu Shan Yu chuckled and responded, Now that you've made it so clear, I won't beat around the bush. Yes, I invited you here to talk about cooperation. While speaking, Tu Shan Yu picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for Qin Chuan, asking, Mr. Qin, are you interested in the ancient relics? Qin Chuan smiled and asked, 7th Elder, are you talking about the ancient human relics that your family recently discovered? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Tu Shan Yu couldn't help but show a trace of surprise on his face. He asked, Have you heard about this? Qin Chuan smiled and nodded. To be honest, 7th Elder, not only have I heard about it, but I also have an entrance ticket. Seeing Qin Chuan take out the jade pendant from his storage ring, Tu Shan was really shocked. He didn't expect that Qin Chuan had not only heard about the ancient human relics, but also had an entrance ticket. This made all the preparations he had prepared to make a deal with Qin Chuan with the entrance ticket go to waste. After recovering from the shock, Tu Shan adjusted his mentality and said in a subtle tone, "Mr. Qin, you must have gotten the entrance ticket from that super auction, right?" By now, except for the VIP guests of the super auction and the ordinary guests who had paid over 1,000,000 star stones for the tickets, Tu Shan family hadn't given out tickets to anyone else. Therefore, it wasn't hard for Tu Shan to guess how Qin Chuan got those tickets. Qin Chuan wasn't surprised that Tu Shan could guess how he got the entrance ticket. He smiled and said to Tu Shan, "Indeed, I didn't expect to encounter such a good thing on my first super auction. Speaking of which, I have to thank your Tu Shan family for being so generous." As Mr. Qin said, "You got the entrance ticket from the super auction, so of course you got it with your own strength. It has nothing to do with the generosity of our Tu Shan family." Tu Shan took a deep glance at Qin Chuan and asked, "Mr. Qin, how much do you know about the ancient human relics?" This time, Qin Chuan honestly shook his head and answered, "I know nothing." Since Qin Chuan came to this universe, he had never entered any relics, so naturally, he knew nothing about them. Seeing this, Tu Shan smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "I want to make a deal with you, Mr. Qin, with some information about the ancient human relics. Are you willing to do that?" Hearing this, Qin Chuan took a deep glance at Tu Shan and asked, "Seventh Elder, what kind of deal do you want to make with me?" Tu Shan answered without hesitation, "I have a granddaughter who is now at the early stage of divinity transformation and is about to go through a small tribulation. I hope Mr. Qin can help my granddaughter. As long as Mr. Qin agrees, I will tell you all the information about the relics of the ancient human clan." Hearing Tu Shan's condition, Qin Chuan pondered for a while, then responded, "Seventh Elder, as long as I can prove that I have the ability to help others go through the trial, I will definitely help your granddaughter." "Ha ha ha, Mr. Qin is really a straightforward person. In this case, I will show my sincerity first and share the information about the ancient human relics with you." Tu Shan laughed out loud and said to Qin Chuan delightfully, "I believe that Mr. Qin will keep his promise. You won't go back on your word." Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Tu Shan, "Seventh Elder, if you don't mind, you can call me Qin Chuan. Mr. Qin is too polite. I don't deserve to be called Mr. in front of you." "That's good. Don't call me Seventh Elder. If you don't mind, you can call me Uncle you." Tu Shan was very satisfied with Qin Chuan's attitude. "I am hundreds of years older than you. Calling me uncle is not taking advantage of you." "Then please take care of me, Uncle you." Qin Chuan grinned. Judging from Tu Shan's behavior, the Tu Shan family's attitude towards him was not bad. He would stay in Tron Nebula for a long time in the future, so he didn't mind meeting a few uncles and aunts in the Tu Shan family. After all, it was always right to have a good relationship with the Tu Shan family. Chapter 974. Since they had already acknowledged each other as his uncle and nephew, Tu Shan didn't waste any more time. He said to Qin Chuan, "Our Tu Shan family found this ancient human ruin 3 years ago. Coincidentally, one day, our starship passed by a space swirl and found some remains in the swirl. After some research, we found that the style of those remains belonged to the ancient human race. In order to find out the history of those remains, we sent people into the swirl and found an ancient human ruin. We also found those jade pendants. We found out that as long as one has the jade pendants, one can freely enter and exit the ancient human ruin without being affected by the swirl." Hearing Tu Shan's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise on his face. He said in a low voice, "No wonder I felt that the jade pendant was so simple and full of charm. It turns out that it was left by the ancient human race. Indeed. Tushan Yu chuckled and said, and according to our deduction, that ancient human ruin should be a trial ground for the humankind to train their younger generations. Speaking of this, the smile on Tushan Yu's face disappeared. He sighed and continued, but sadly, our Tushan family had tried our best. We sent countless people into that ancient human ruin to investigate, but very few people could come back alive. It's said that there are many powerful traps in that ancient human ruin. They shouldn't hurt people, but after countless years, they have gone out of control. Anyone who touches them will die. For this reason, our Tushan family suffered a great loss, but failed to gain much from that ancient human ruin. Added with the fact that this ancient human ruin has been showing signs of collapsing recently, we had to make the decision to invite all the heroes in the world to explore this ancient human ruin together. Hearing this, Qin Chuan was a bit surprised. He asked, "This ancient human ruin is collapsing?" Tushan Yu nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "According to our preliminary speculation, this ancient human ruin can last for 3 years at most." "I see." Qin Chuan slightly frowned. "If we can't finish exploring this ancient human ruin within 3 years, that would be a shame." "That's what we thought as well. That's why we announced the news." Tushan Yu chuckled, "But compared to the others, our Tushan family has a certain advantage. After all, we have been exploring this ancient human ruin for 3 years. We have sacrificed a lot, but some sacrifices are worth it." Hearing Tushan Yu's words, Qin Chuan straightened his ears, because he clearly knew that what Tushan Yu was going to say next must be related to the intelligence that he mentioned before. "As far as I know, there are 5 kinds of traps in this ancient human historical site, and all of them are related to magic talismans, corresponding to the nature of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. As long as you can solve one of the traps, you can get the reward hidden in the trap. So far, our Tushan family has been rewarded 3 times in total, including a magic pill, a cultivation method and a level 5 battle formation." Tushan Yu looked at Qin Chuan in a complicated way and said, "With your talent in magic formation, you might be able to gain quite a lot of rewards." Hearing Tushan Yu, Qin Chuan was a bit surprised. Are the rewards so generous? Ancient human beings were famous for their magic pills and magic talismans. Since those pills could be used as rewards for solving magic formations, Tushan Yu assumed that those pills and magic talismans must be great. The rewards are generous indeed, but the price we paid is amazing as well. Tushan Yu smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "If you don't have 100% chance, I suggest you not to try." Qin Chuan nodded slightly. From what Tushan Yu said, it wasn't hard to figure out that Tushan family people must have paid a great price to solve the 3 traps and get the rewards. Tushan family had a large number of people, and could try many times. However, he only had 1 life. If he tried and failed, the consequences might be horrible. Pausing for a while, Tushan Yu continued, "In this human ruin, except for the 5 elements traps, there is a special place called the Tower of Heaven. The tower has 99 floors in total. You can get a reward for each floor you pass. Our Tushan family people reached the 20th floor at most, and the reward we got was a heaven heart pill. Taking the pill, a divinity cultivator could directly break into a small level." Hearing Tushan Yu, Qin Chuan couldn't help but exclaim, "Directly break into a small level? That's crazy." The alchemy techniques of the ancient human clan are indeed very abnormal. Tushan Yu sighed and said, "Sadly, the magic pills were lost along with the disappearance of the humankind and the decline of the humanoid kind. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to study magic pills anymore." "What's the consequence if you fail?" Qin Chuan was curious. "If there are only rewards and no punishments, does that mean we can try as many times as we want?" "Of course there are punishments." Tushan Yu said to Qin Chuan, "If you fail in the first 10 floors, you'll be teleported out. It won't endanger your life, but you can't try again within a month. If you fail in the 10th to 20th floors, you'll be teleported out as well, but you can't try again within 2 months. As for the higher floors, I don't know. Speaking of this, Tushan Yu took a sip of tea and continued, there's one more thing. Outside the tower, there's a sky-reaching stele, on which are the records of all the people who have passed the floors. The first one is a genius of the ancient human race, named Wang Yangfeng. This Wang Yangfeng reached the 86th floor of the tower as a late Dongshu realm cultivator. Upon hearing this, Qin Chuan couldn't help but widen his eyes. There were only 99 floors in the tower, and this guy had reached the 86th floor. What kind of reward would he get? You must be very curious about what reward this Wang Yangfeng obtained in the sky-penetrating tower. There is a substele near this sky-penetrating stele. The substele records the best rewards obtained by the challengers in the sky-penetrating tower. This Wang Yangfeng obtained a high-grade saint artifact as his reward after passing the 86th floor. Tushan Yu couldn't help but sigh. An upper-grade holy weapon. That's a treasure that even the overlords of the universe can only dream of. Even in the entire Tron Nebula, there's not a single upper-grade holy weapon. The most powerful one is only the Heavenly King token, a middle-grade holy weapon from the Metropolis government. Hearing this, Qin Chuan couldn't help but look forward to the reward he would get after passing the tower. If he could pass the entire tower, what kind of reward would he get? Haha, don't just think about the reward. Think about the dangers. Seeing the yearning look on Qin Chuan's face, Tushan Yu couldn't help but pour cold water on Qin Chuan. There are still many dangers in the ruins of the ancient human race. Chapter 975. Danger. Hearing Tushan Yu mention the dangers in the ancient human ruins, Qin Chuan's face instantly turned serious. Based on Tushan Yu's description, he almost believed that as long as he didn't seek death in the ancient human ruins, he wouldn't be in any danger. Seeing Qin Chuan's face change, Tushan Yu smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "You know, this ancient human ruins is located in a space swirl. We don't know if the ancient human ruins were originally hidden in the space swirl, or if the space swirl appeared later. All in all, because of this space swirl, the space in the ancient human ruins has become very unstable. This is also one of the main reasons why the ancient human ruins can only last for 3 years at most before collapsing." Hearing Tushan Yu, Qin Chuan frowned and asked, "So the danger comes from the unstable space?" Tushan Yu nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "To be exact, it should be space cracks. These space cracks don't appear at a fixed time, and neither do their sizes and locations. You can say that they are unpredictable, without any pattern. These space cracks can easily cut anything, even powerful cultivators at the Dongshu stage. Once you touch one of these space cracks, the small ones may cut off your arm, while the big ones may devour your entire body." Hearing Tushan Yu's explanation, Qin Chuan's face slightly changed as he asked, "Can people who have mastered the great Tao of space foresee the appearance of these space cracks?" Tushan Yu shook his head and answered, "Unless you have a high attainment in the great Tao of space, even if you can sense them, you can hardly avoid them. At that time, when we were exploring the ruins, many of us died silently under the cutting of the spatial cracks. Are there any other dangers besides these?" Judging from Tushan Yu's expression, Qin Chuan felt that the dangers didn't only come from the space cracks. Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Tushan Yu chuckled and answered, "Indeed, apart from the space cracks, which are almost unpreventable, there is another kind of danger in the ancient ruins, which is the void creatures." Void creatures? This was not the first time Qin Chuan heard about void creatures. The Grand Duke of Black Chess in the Sane Galaxy was conferred the title of Grand Duke because of his contributions in fighting against void creatures. Qin Chuan asked curiously, "What kind of existence is a void creature? I've never seen one before, so I don't know much about it." Facing Qin Chuan's question, Tushan Yu shook his head and replied, To be honest, almost no one in this universe knows what kind of race the void creatures are and how they appeared in our world. However, one thing is certain, and that is that the void creatures will definitely attack us once they encounter us. They will not stop until they die. Qin Chuan asked again, "How strong are those void creatures?" Tu Shan Yu answered, "The strength of void creatures is directly related to their size. The bigger the size, the stronger they are. The weakest one is as powerful as a nascent soul stage cultivator, while the strongest one is as powerful as a complete Dongshu stage cultivator." Hearing Tu Shan Yu's answer, Qin Chuan was shocked. The strongest void creature was as powerful as a complete Dongshu stage cultivator. Didn't that mean that they would have no fun if they encountered one? As far as I know, there are a total of 2 void creatures that have reached the peak of Dongshu realm in the ruins. The places where they are located are very dark and damp. As long as you don't intentionally go near those places, there shouldn't be any problems. Tu Shan Yu said to Qin Chuan, "Of course, if you are directly teleported to those places, you can only blame yourself for being unlucky." Teleported? Qin Chuan was stunned and asked, "Are we randomly teleported to the ancient ruins?" Tu Shan Yu nodded and responded, "That's right, it's a random teleportation. Maybe you'll appear in a treasure vault after entering the relic and earn a lot, or maybe you'll appear in the center of a group of void creatures and be torn to pieces. It all depends on your luck." Hearing Tu Shan Yu's words, Qin Chuan was quite embarrassed. He didn't expect that even entering the ancient ruins depended on luck. If it weren't for all these restrictions, with the strength of our Tu Shan family, we wouldn't have been unable to explore this ancient ruins for such a long time. Tu Shan Yu looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle look and said, "So, if you choose to quit now, it's not too late." "I won't quit." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Tu Shan Yu, "Cultivation is against the natural order. If I choose to retreat when facing dangers and difficulties, then what's the point of cultivating?" Hearing Qin Chuan Tu Shan Yu clapped his hands and said, "Good. You're indeed a young hero. You're indeed courageous. I think Uncle Yu doesn't want me to die in the ancient ruins either, right? So, do you have any other information to share?" Qin Chuan grinned, "I can keep my mouth shut." Hearing this, Tu Shan Yu laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "I've told you everything I know. If you want me to say something else, I can only remind you that you'd better not trust anyone except yourself in the ruins, especially when you've gained some benefits." Tu Shan Yu threw a complicated glance at Qin Chuan. "Do you understand?" Qin Chuan nodded and said to Tu Shan Yu, "Thanks for the reminder, I'll remember it." It was 2 hours later when Qin Chuan left Tu Shan Yu's room. During this time, he had gained a certain understanding of the ancient human ruins. If he wasn't so unlucky as to be teleported directly into a dangerous area, he should be able to live a relatively comfortable life. After returning to his room, Qin Chuan was sorting out the information he got from Tu Shan Yu, and was about to send it to Ao Feng. Unexpectedly, Ao Feng suddenly sent him a call invitation. Qin Chuan was immediately accepting Ao Feng's call invitation, and Ao Feng's familiar voice rang in Qin Chuan's ears. "Qin Chuan, it's about time for you to come back," Ao Feng said to Qin Chuan with a smile. "Am I disturbing you from comprehending the Tao scriptures?" Qin Chuan was chuckling. "Then you're really disturbing me. I almost comprehended the heavenly wind Tao." "Io, stop bragging. You're definitely on a spaceship now. You're on the way back, right?" Ao Feng smiled. "I'll wait for you at the Star Moon Hotel. Come find me when you're back, and we'll discuss the exploration of the ancient ruins." "Okay." Qin Chuan agreed with a smile. Compared to sending an email, he suddenly felt that it was more pleasantly surprised to tell Ao Feng the information he knew in person. Chapter 976. After returning to Trong City, Tu Shan Yu still had some other things to do, so he didn't bring Qin Chuan back to the family immediately. Instead, He agreed to meet up with Qin Chuan at the observatory tomorrow morning before returning to the family together. Qin Chuan liked this arrangement very much. This way, he would have time to meet up with his old friend, Ao Feng. He could also share the information he obtained with Ao Feng. When Qin Chuan arrived at Starmoon Hotel, he called Ao Feng. When Ao Feng heard that Qin Chuan had returned, he happily said to Qin Chuan, "You're back just in time. Come to the restaurant on the 20th floor. We're having a dinner party. It hasn't started yet." Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned. He was a little confused. Dinner party? Who are you with? A lot of people. We're all friends. Ao Feng's voice was a little noisy. Qin Chuan couldn't help but frown. He hung up the phone and glanced at the hotel sign in front of him. He decided to check out the situation first. When Qin Chuan arrived at the restaurant on the 20th floor, the waiter was serving the dishes. A huge long table was filled with people. At a rough glance, there were at least 20 people. Ao Feng was sitting among them and was enthusiastically chatting with the people around him. When Qin Chuan walked into the restaurant, Ao Feng immediately noticed Qin Chuan's arrival. He stood up and waved at Qin Chuan. He shouted, "Hey Qin Chuan, I'm here." When the people around the table heard Ao Feng's shout, they subconsciously turned their heads to look at Qin Chuan. The expression in their eyes was a little subtle. They had heard Ao Feng mention Qin Chuan countless times in the past few days. Today, they finally got to meet him in person. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Chuan slowly walked towards the dining table. Ao Feng pointed at the empty seat beside him and said to Qin Chuan, "This seat is reserved for you. Come quickly." Just as Qin Chuan was about to sit down on the empty seat, the handsome young man sitting at the head of the table suddenly said faintly, "This new friend, shouldn't you introduce yourself before sitting down?" Hearing the young man's words, Qin Chuan raised his eyebrows and asked, "Who are you?" The handsome young man smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "It seems that Ao Feng didn't mention me to you. I'm Stam, the president of the fraternity." Fraternity? Upon hearing the name of this very special organization, Qin Chuan turned his gaze to Ao Feng and asked curiously, "What does this mean?" Ao Feng stood up and smiled at Qin Chuan. "The fraternity is a guild we established together. Everyone here is a member. You still haven't explained clearly what this fraternity does." Qin Chuan looked at Ao Feng with a subtle expression. "Furthermore, I don't think I need the help of these people." Qin Chuan wasn't an arrogant person, but he really didn't think that a group of people who were at most at the soul formation pinnacle stage would be able to provide him with much help. Sometimes, numbers didn't necessarily make up for the difference in quality. Following Qin Chuan's words, everyone's gazes toward Qin Chuan instantly became unfriendly. Qin Chuan's attitude was clearly looking down on them. It would be strange if they were happy. Ao Feng saw the change in everyone's expressions and hurriedly said to Qin Chuan, don't speak nonsense. Alright Ao Feng, let me explain for you. Stam chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, we may not be able to provide you with any help in the outside world, but what about in the ancient human ruins? Are you sure you can move freely in the ancient human ruins without encountering any danger and without needing any help? Hearing Stam mention the ancient human ruins, Qin Chuan's heart stirred slightly. He asked, you established this fraternity to deal with the ancient human ruins that will be taking place soon? That's right. That's how it is. Everyone here has an entry ticket. Stam looked at Qin Chuan. I've heard Ao Feng talk about you before. You're a good young man. If you're willing to join us, I can give you the position of deputy. When Qin Chuan heard this, he looked at Stam with a playful gaze. He smiled and asked, the position of deputy? I'd like to know what this position is for. The fraternity is divided into 4 positions: member, team leader, deputy, and president. When everyone gathers together, they have to listen to the arrangements of their superiors. This arrangement also includes how to distribute the spoils. Stam said proudly to Qin Chuan, because of my appreciation, you will have power second only to mine. What do you think? Don't you think it's pretty good? Qin Chuan didn't think there was anything wrong with Ao Feng joining this fraternity. When he heard Stam's arrogant words and the others' expressions of agreement, he couldn't help but wonder if Ao Feng's brain was damaged. Why would he join such an unreliable organization? Sorry, I'm not interested. Qin Chuan shook his head. I don't like to manage others, and I don't like to be managed by others. In the face of Qin Chuan's rejection, before Stam could say anything, Ao Feng anxiously sent a voice transmission to Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan, calm down. These people are from various forces in Trong City. Although their backgrounds aren't as powerful as the Metropolis Prefecture or the Tushan family, they're still a force to be reckoned with. It'll be much more convenient for us to move around the ancient human ruins with them. Hearing Ao Feng's words, Qin Chuan looked at Ao Feng with a subtle gaze and replied, Would you believe me if I said it'd be more convenient for you to move around with me? Don't joke around. Stam has insider information. Ao Feng didn't believe Qin Chuan's words at all. He said to Qin Chuan, Stam said that there are void creatures in the ancient human ruins. Seeing Ao Feng's attitude, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Ao Feng, I understand what you mean. At the same time, I respect your choice. I'm sorry, but I won't be moving with these people. After saying that, Qin Chuan turned around and walked out of the restaurant. He had completely lost interest in staying here. Wait, you can't leave yet. At this moment, Stam suddenly said to Qin Chuan, Everyone has to pay a membership fee to join the fraternity. It's not much, only 30,000 star stones. Your friend Ao Feng doesn't have that many star stones. He once said that as long as you come back, you'll definitely help him pay the fee. If you want to leave and aren't willing to pay for him, then he can only go with you. Hearing Stam's words, Qin Chuan slowly turned around and looked at Ao Feng. When he saw the pleading expression on Ao Feng's face, he couldn't help but sigh. I understand. 30,000 star stones, I'll pay for him. Chapter 977. Qin Chuan thought that his meeting with Ao Feng would be a reunion between friends after a long separation, and that everyone should be happy about it. However, he never thought that he would encounter such a farce. After leaving the hotel, Qin Chuan could still see Ao Feng's pleading face from time to time. He clearly remembered how fast Ao Feng's expression changed when he said that he was willing to pay the membership fee for Ao Feng. It only took a split second for Ao Feng to turn from a pitiful pleading face to an excited one. After Qin Chuan took out the 30,000 star stones, Ao Feng didn't try to keep him any longer. It was as if Qin Chuan's only purpose was to pay the 30,000 star stones. As for the rest, Ao Feng didn't seem to care. Even if it was the friendship they had formed after going through a crisis together. This made Qin Chuan feel a little disappointed, but also a little relieved. After sighing with emotion, Qin Chuan quickly threw this matter to the back of his mind. He was not the kind of person who liked to torture himself. Since they could no longer be friends, then he would just be an unimportant stranger. The 30,000 star stones would be his last bit of care for Ao Feng. After returning to the observatory hotel, Qin Chuan meditated on the world of woods for a whole night. The next morning, he showed up in the lobby of the hotel at 7 o'clock sharp, quietly and patiently waiting for Tu Shanyue's arrival. Fortunately, Tu Shanyue didn't keep him waiting for too long. 20 minutes later, Tu Shanyue appeared in the lobby of the hotel and stood in front of him. Looking at the energetic Qin Chuan, Tu Shanyue chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, Let's go back to the family. Qin Chuan looked at the nearly 20 people behind Tu Shanyue and said with a smile, Uncle Yu, so you went to recruit these people yesterday. Tu Shanyue nodded with a smile and responded, After every Talisman Formation Master Conference, We have to select the best talisman formation masters who meet our requirements from over 100 winners and invite them to join the family. These people will be your colleagues in the future, so you can control your attitude." Finishing his speech, Tushan Yu and the others boarded a spaceship parked outside, heading straight to a steel satellite in the west of Trong City. That was the headquarters of the Tushan family. As one of the most powerful forces in Trang City, Tushan family occupied an entire steel satellite. Since this satellite was labeled as Tushan family, it had become a private territory of Tushan family. Except for Tushan family members and guests, no one else was allowed to approach this satellite. Once anyone with ill intentions was found, the guards of Tushan family would directly kill him or her as an intruder. This was a rule that everyone living in Trang City knew. By now, Qin Chuan had learned about this rule. Therefore, before he was fully accepted by the Tushan family, he would have to take the Tushan family's spaceship to travel to and from this satellite. When the spaceship slowly landed in the starport on the steel satellite, Tushan Yu smilingly said to Qin Chuan, "Welcome to Tushan Manor." Hearing this, Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Tushan Yu, "No wonder you're from Tushan family. You're able to occupy such a large metal satellite in Trong City as your manor. This is how the universe works. Powerful people can have everything they want. If one day, a powerful being who can make Tushan family helpless suddenly appeared and asked us to move out of our manor, we would have no choice but to retreat." Tushan Yu chuckled, "But I hope that day will never come." While talking, Qin Chuan followed behind Tushan Yu and got off the spaceship. After a simple inspection in the starport, they boarded the spaceship and headed to the personnel center of the manor. On the spaceship, Tushan Yu explained to Qin Chuan, "Everyone who joins the family for the first time needs to go to the personnel center to register. Only people with IDs are allowed to move freely in some special areas of the manor." "Special areas?" asked Qin Chuan curiously. "Are there any forbidden areas in the manor?" Tushan Yu nodded and answered, "There are 3 forbidden areas in the manor. The first one is where the elders of the family cultivate themselves. It's called Jingxi Palace. No one is allowed to break in. If anyone is caught entering Jingxi Palace without permission, he or she will be expelled from the family or killed on the spot. The second one is the medicine-making center. No one is allowed to break in except for those who have a pass. The punishment is the same as the first one. The third one is the treasure room. The treasures collected by the family from all over the world are kept in there. I don't need to repeat myself. You should know the consequences of breaking in." Hearing Tushan Yu's words, Qin Chuan slightly nodded, smiled and said, "I will keep that in mind. Jingxi Palace, Medicine Concoction Center and Treasure Pavilion are places that I can never go to. For my own life, I will try my best to avoid these 3 places." While they were talking, the spaceship had already arrived at the personnel center. The others were led by the staff to register, while Qin Chuan was led by Tushan Yu. Qin Chuan. Humanoid. 72 years old. Qin Chuan gave some simple information about himself to the staff. Because Tushan Yu was with him, Qin Chuan didn't have to go through some tests that the others had to go through. This made Qin Chuan feel quite lucky. If he had to do some blood test or bone-touching test, his identity would have been exposed immediately. Soon, Qin Chuan received his ID card, which was a thumb-sized chip. As long as he put the chip in his optical computer, he would be able to enter and leave the manor freely. It was worth mentioning that the model of Qin Chuan's optical computer was a bit old. The staff couldn't stand it anymore, so they provided a brand new optical computer for Qin Chuan. The optical computer was only the size of a ring. It could be used as an optical computer, and could even be used as a storage space. "Thank you." Qin Chuan took off the slightly heavy optical computer on his wrist, smiled and said, "In fact, I've been wanting to change that antique for a long time." "All right, your ID card is done. We can go and meet the other elders of the family now. Tushan Yu said to Qin Chuan, after you meet those elders, you have to remember one thing. Except for the specific questions about the great law of thunder, you can answer whatever they want. You can even fool them. Hearing Tushan Yu's words, Qin Chuan nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. He understood what Tushan Yu meant. What the Tushan family cared about was whether or not he could help someone pass the divine retribution. As for the other things, the Tushan family didn't care at all. Even if he was exposed for lying about other things, it wouldn't matter. At least, so far, Qin Chuan had a pretty good impression of the Tushan family. As long as nothing went wrong in the next step, his friendship with the Tushan family should last for a long time. Chapter 978. The place Tushan Yu took Qin Chuan to was called the Elders' Hall, where the elders usually held meetings. Today, except for the Great Elder and the Second Elder, who were in closed-door cultivation, the other 6 elders and the leader of the family had all come to the Elders' Hall, waiting for Tushan Yu and Qin Chuan. When Tushan Yu led Qin Chuan into the Elders' Hall, the people sitting in the hall all turned their heads and looked at Qin Chuan, who was walking behind Tushan Yu. Facing these gazes, Qin Chuan couldn't help but feel nervous. After all, these people in front of him were all powerful cultivators at the Dongshu stage. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't nervous. Patriarch, elders, I'm back. Tushan Yu greeted the others first, then introduced Qin Chuan to them. This is Qin Chuan, who has mastered the law of thunder. It seems that he has the ability to help people pass the heavenly tribulation. Hearing Tushan Yu's words, Tushan Ing, the leader of the family, nodded slightly and responded, 7th Elder, you've been out for so long. It must have been hard on you. Please take a seat. Tushan Yu glanced back at Qin Chuan, then returned to his seat and sat down. When Tushan Yu left Qin Chuan's side, Qin Chuan was completely exposed to the others. For some reason, Qin Chuan had a faint sense of crisis in his heart. Don't be afraid. We mean no harm. Sensing Qin Chuan's nervousness and vigilance, Tushan Ing chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, as long as you pass the test, you will become a member of the Tushan family, which means you will be our partner. We will give you the same treatment as a family member, and will not restrict your personal freedom. Even if you fail the test, we will not harm you. We will only send you away from the family. Hearing Tushan Ying's words, Qin Chuan pursed his lips and responded, I understand, leader. But how do you plan to carry out the test? Hearing this, Tushan Ying replied, the experiment is very simple. You only need to help a cultivator in the peak Oris core realm to go through the nascent soul thunder tribulation. Hearing Tushan Ying's request, Qin Chuan was relieved. It was not difficult to help a cultivator in the exceptional gold core realm go through the thunder tribulation of the nascent soul realm. Even if there was an accident, he would not be in any danger. It could be regarded as a relatively simple experiment. While Qin Chuan was thinking about this, Tu Shanying continued, but if the experiment succeeds, you have to help one of your people pass the divinity tribulation today. Qin Chuan thought for a moment and nodded. I can give it a try. Hearing Qin Chuan's conservative answer, Tushan Ing threw a meaningful glance at Qin Chuan and said, in this case, let's do the experiment first. Let's go to the training field. Because of the experiment, Tushan Ing deliberately chose an open field with few people to seal off. At this time, there was only a young man in his 20s besides Qin Chuan. This young man was the target of Qin Chuan's experiment. Senior, my name is Sun Miao. Sun Miao bowed to Qin Chuan. I already know about the experiment. Please take care of me. Qin Chuan nodded and said to Sun Miao, let's begin. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Sun Miao immediately sat down cross-legged on the ground and began to circulate her qi to try to trigger the thunder tribulation. Standing around the training field and watching, Tushan Ing and the others looked at the dark clouds gradually gathering in the sky. They couldn't help showing a look of expectation. As long as Qinchuan could help Sun Miao pass the nascent soul thunder tribulation, it meant that Qinchuan did have the ability to help others pass the tribulation. If Qinchuan could help one of their juniors pass the divinity tribulation, Qinchuan's position in their hearts would rise sharply. Qinchuan is only at the early divinity tribulation now. When he reaches a higher level, he may be able to help us old guys pass the tribulation. Tushan Ying narrowed his eyes and said to Tushan Yu, "How long do you think it will take for Qinchuan to reach the Dongshu stage?" Tushan Yu thought for a while and answered, 300 years at most. According to Tushan Yu's understanding of Qinchuan, Qinchuan was only 72 years old. The fact that he could become a divinity tribulation cultivator and pass the 9 levels of mysterious heaven at such a young age meant that he was extremely talented. 300 years was definitely enough for Qinchuan to reach the Dongshu stage. The 300 years you said should include the time he spent on studying the talisman matrix. If he wholeheartedly cultivates, I estimate that he will reach the Dongshu stage within 100 years. Tushan Ying took a deep look at Tushan Yu and said in a low voice, "You have to find a way to guide Qinchuan. Make him focus more on cultivation. Talisman matrix is only an aid after all." Tushan Yu nodded and answered, "I know what to do." While Tushan Ying and Tushan Yu were talking, the dark clouds in the sky finally turned into tribulation clouds. Thunderbolts began to roll and rumble. When the power of tribulation lightning accumulated to a certain degree, it suddenly struck down, aiming directly at Sun Miao. Whoosh! When he saw that the tribulation lightning was about to strike Sun Miao, Qinchuan suddenly made a move. An extremely profound force surged out along with this, and it actually instantly transformed the menacing tribulation lightning into nothingness. It was as if everything from before was just an illusion and nothing had happened. When the crowd saw this scene, a glint flashed across their eyes. Qinchuan really did have the ability to help others pass the tribulation. Just as the crowd was thinking this, the second lightning tribulation descended. However, Qinchuan did not neutralize it. Instead, he allowed the second lightning tribulation to strike Sun Miao. Boom! Under the attack of the lightning tribulation, Sun Miao's face suddenly paled. The destructive power and life force of the lightning tribulation constantly ravaged and repaired Sun Miao's body, causing Sun Miao both pain and joy. Very soon, another bolt of lightning descended. With Sun Miao's talent, she had only triggered an ordinary 6th-grade lightning tribulation. Qinchuan had only blocked the first and last lightning bolts of the 6 lightning tribulations. Sun Miao had endured the last 4 lightning bolts. Fortunately, there were no problems. When the tribulation clouds in the sky dispersed, the onlookers immediately appeared beside Sun Miao and began to check her body. He is really at the original soul stage. He has passed the tribulation successfully. Although his aura is a little unstable, we can confirm that he has successfully advanced. Soon, everyone checked Sun Miao's condition. After confirming Sun Miao's condition, they couldn't help but turn their heads to look at Qinchuan. "Qinchuan, can you explain why you only blocked the first and last tribulation thunder and ignored the last 4 tribulation thunder? Is there a limit to your endurance and you need more time to recover?" Tushan Ying looked at Qinchuan and was very confused about Qinchuan's previous performance. This kind of thing couldn't be sloppy, so it was better to ask in advance. Faced with Tushan Ying's question, Qinchuan smiled and said to Tushan Ying, "I am thinking for Sun Miao." Chapter 979. Thinking for Sun Miao? Hearing Qinchuan's answer, the others were all stunned and pondered. Facing the doubts of the others, Qinchuan further explained, "Thunder tribulation is different from heaven tribulation. It has both destructive power and vitality. It can heal the human body at the same time and bring great benefits to the human body. The more thunder tribulations Sun Miao suffers, the more benefits he will get. If I want to dissolve all the thunder tribulations, Sun Miao may not be able to reach the nascent soul stage without going through the thunder tribulation. Even if he does, he will be the weakest nascent soul stage cultivator, not much stronger than a peak gold core stage cultivator. Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, the others all understood what Qin Chuan meant. The way they looked at Qin Chuan became subtle. I have a suggestion. If possible, I still hope that the divinity transformation stage cultivators in our clan can rely on their own strength to go through the minor tribulation. In this way, they can grow during the minor tribulation. As for the heaven tribulation, I will try my best to help. Qin Chuan said to Tu Shan, but this is only my suggestion. As for what to do, I will follow your arrangement. Qin Chuan didn't care at all whether the others could become stronger after the tribulation. He just made this suggestion out of kindness. If Tu Shan didn't want to accept it, it didn't matter. Anyway, he had made his attitude clear. The rest depended on Tu Shan attitude. Patriarch, I think Qin Chuan has a point. Fourth Elder Tu Shan Hao said to Tu Shan, the tribulation is a test for us cultivators. If we have to cheat to pass all the tests, I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to make any progress in our lives. Fourth Elder is right. Third Elder Tu Shan Lei agreed. Try to rely on yourself during the minor tribulation. Qin Chuan will try his best to help the heaven tribulation. Tu Shan nodded slightly and said to the others, I think Qin Chuan's suggestion is good. You are all right. In this case, let's follow Qin Chuan's suggestion. Speaking of this, Tu Shan paused for a moment and then said to Qin Chuan, but the thunder tribulation you tested before was only for the nascent soul stage. Next, you will have to test it again with a minor tribulation of the spirit severing stage. Qin Chuan nodded and replied, sure. Soon, under Tu Shan arrangement, an early soul formation cultivator came to the training ground. He was still a little nervous about this experiment because he had just gone through a heavenly tribulation not long ago. If he failed this minor tribulation, he might die. Mr. Qin, please do your best to help me. Tu Shan Tiger looked at Qin Chuan sincerely, hoping that Qin Chuan would try his best to help him later. Hearing Tu Shan Tiger's request, Qin Chuan responded, try your best later. If you feel that you can't hold on any longer, just call me. All right. Tu Shan Tiger agreed at once. He had heard Qin Chuan's suggestion before and knew that it would be good for him to resist a few more minor tribulations. As long as Qin Chuan could guarantee that he could survive the minor tribulations, it would be enough. As Tu Shan Tiger's momentum soared, the minor tribulations soon arrived. A huge cloud of tribulation covered the sky and the rumbling of thunder shook the world. The momentum was several times greater than the previous thunder tribulation of the nascent soul stage. Boom! When the first minor tribulation fell, Tu Shan Tiger chose to resist it directly. The power of the thunder tribulation wandered around Tu Shan Tiger's body, shattering and reforming his body. Amazing changes were taking place. This was the first time that Qin Chuan had watched someone go through a minor tribulation at such a close distance. He had a general understanding of the power of the minor tribulation. With his current strength, he was not afraid of the minor tribulation at all. At least, he was not afraid of the minor tribulation from the early soul formation stage to the middle soul formation stage. After enduring 4 minor tribulations in a row, Tu Shan Tiger finally couldn't help but roar to Qin Chuan, I can't hold on any longer. Before Tu Shan Tiger's voice faded away, the 5th minor tribulation had fallen. This time, Qin Chuan finally chose to resist it with the law of thunder. To Qin Chuan's surprise, the minor tribulation didn't disappear under the influence of the law of thunder. Instead, it was drawn into his body through the law of thunder. Boom! The power of the thunder tribulation exploded in Qin Chuan's body instantly and turned into endless power, pouring into Qin Chuan's limbs and bones. Finally, it gathered in his dantian and turned into pure spiritual power, which made Qin Chuan's strength soar a little. This sudden change caused Qin Chuan to be dumbfounded. However, he didn't have time to think about this because the sixth minor tribulation had also descended. Moreover, just like the fifth minor tribulation, it surged into his body and finally turned into his strength. However, all this could only be perceived by Qin Chuan. In the eyes of others, Qin Chuan had resolved the minor tribulation, so they didn't notice the subsequent changes in Qin Chuan's body. When the tribulation clouds in the sky dissipated, Tushan Tiger immediately jumped up from the ground and said to Qin Chuan with joy, "Thank you, Mr. Qin, for helping me through the minor tribulation." Hearing Tushan Tiger's words of gratitude, Qin Chuan recovered from the previous shock. He glanced at Tushan Tiger with a slightly strange look and asked, "How do you feel now?" Hearing this, Tushan Tiger replied with a smile, "I feel very good now. It's as if I have endless strength." Just as Qin Chuan and Tushan Tiger were talking, Tushan Ing and the others appeared around Tushan Tiger again and began to check his physical condition. The middle stage of Huashan realm. He's really at the middle stage of Huashan realm, and his aura doesn't seem weak. Not only that, but part of the remaining power of the thunder tribulation in his body seems to have been resolved. Ha ha ha, with this method, our Tushan family will definitely surpass the metropolis and become the most powerful force in Tron Nebula. After the excitement, the crowd soon calmed down. When they looked at Qin Chuan again, their attitude was completely different from before. Qin Chuan had proved his value with practical actions, so their attitude towards Qin Chuan naturally changed from indifference to enthusiasm. "Qin Chuan, you've passed the test. You have officially become a consecrator of our Tushan family. You will enjoy all the benefits of a consecrator and also have special rights. You can freely enter and leave the manor, and you can also go to the library to borrow any books." Tushan Ing said to Qin Chuan happily, "You can ask for anything you want. If it's reasonable, we will satisfy you." Hearing this, Qin Chuan smiled and said to Tushan Ing, "Qin Chuan has nothing to ask for. I only hope that our previous cooperation will not change, and that our friendship can continue." Hearing this, Tushan Ing looked at Qin Chuan in a subtle way. Ever since he became the leader of the Tushan family, this was the first time that a divinity transformation cultivator had talked to him about friendship. However, judging from what Qin Chuan had shown, Qin Chuan was indeed qualified. Tushan Ing took a deep look at Qin Chuan and responded, "Everything will be as you wish." Chapter 980. In the residence arranged for Qin Chuan by the Tushan family, Qin Chuan sat in the cultivation room with his legs crossed, carefully checking his body condition. After confirming that all the small tribulations that were guided into his body had indeed been turned into pure spiritual power and flowed into his dantian, the look on his face became a little weird. "I didn't think that I could get such a great fortune when helping people to pass through small tribulations. Not only am I immune to the destructive power of the small tribulations, but I can also get benefits from them." Qin Chuan murmured, "This didn't happen during the thunder tribulations of the nascent soul level. Is it because the thunder tribulations of the nascent soul level are too weak for me now?" Thinking of this, Qin Chuan couldn't help but think of the divine tribulations again. He was curious whether the divine tribulations would be guided into his body and turned into pure spiritual power to improve his power. However, after thinking about it, Qin Chuan felt that the probability of this happening was low. After all, the divine tribulations only contained pure destructive power. All he could do was to be immune to the destructive power, instead of turning the destructive power into benefits. "I hope that more people in the Tushan family will come to me for the minor tribulations, and fewer will come to me for the divine tribulations." Qin Chuan grinned. If one or two more people came to him for the minor tribulations, he might be able to take the opportunity to break into the middle stage of divinity transformation. While Qin Chuan was thinking about this, Tushan Yu suddenly sent him a message, saying that he would help 2 people pass through their tribulations tomorrow, and both of them were minor tribulations. Reading the message, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be delighted. What a wonderful feeling to have someone give you a pillow when you want to sleep. Rumble. After the last minor tribulation fell, Qin Chuan finally passed through the first minor tribulation in his life and successfully broke into the middle stage of divinity transformation. Earlier, when he helped others pass through their minor tribulations, Qin Chuan absorbed the power contained in 5 minor tribulations, which directly boosted Qin Chuan's power to the peak of the early stage of divinity transformation. He almost triggered a minor tribulation on the spot. Fortunately, Qin Chuan was prepared. He had applied for a special training ground for tribulations through Tushan Yu in advance, so he could pass through this minor tribulation in a relatively private training ground. Compared to the others, my aura and strength after transcending the tribulation are much stronger. It's probably because I transcended a complete minor tribulation while they transcended an incomplete minor tribulation. Sensing the amazing power contained in his body, Qin Chuan couldn't help but smile. Now, he couldn't wait to help more people pass their minor tribulations. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before his power would soar to the peak of divinity transformation, and then he would trigger the void thunder tribulation directly. Of course, Qin Chuan was only thinking about it. First of all, although there were many people in the Tushan family, not everyone needed his help to pass through their tribulations. Second of all, he didn't have the time and energy to help these people pass through their tribulations, because the ancient human ruins were about to be opened to the public. He had to set off for the ancient human ruins. However, before that, Qin Chuan planned to get the rewards for helping others pass through their minor tribulations. According to their agreement, 3 rewards could be exchanged for a 5th-grade battle formation. Although he didn't have the right to choose, Qin Chuan felt that a 5th-grade battle formation collected by the Tushan family shouldn't be too bad. Soon, Qin Chuan randomly selected a 5th-grade battle formation through the internal network of the Tushan family. Purgatory Fire. Qin Chuan looked at the name of the 5th-grade battle formation, and a hint of joy appeared on his face. He didn't think that he would be so lucky to draw a fire attribute battle formation. Among all the battle formations, fire attribute battle formations could definitely be ranked in the top 3 in terms of offensive power. It's a pity that I haven't comprehended the fire attribute Dao text yet, so I can only look at it. This is so unbearable. Qin Chuan helplessly put away the battle formation engraving method. He didn't know when he would have the opportunity to comprehend the fire attribute Dao text. On the spaceship heading to the ancient human ruins, Qin Chuan locked himself in his bedroom to study the realm of wood. During this time, Tushan Yu came by once and gave Qin Chuan some information. This time, there would be about 10,000 cultivators entering the ancient human ruins to explore. Among them, there were about 1,000 Dongshu stage cultivators, and the rest were all spirit-severing stage cultivators. Among them, there were about 500 people from the Tushan family, led by 3rd Elder Tushan Lei, 4th Elder Tushan Hao, and 5th Elder Tushan Ming. If Qin Chuan ran into any trouble, he could ask the Tushan family for help. However, if it was Qin Chuan who started the trouble, then whether the Tushan family would protect Qin Chuan or not would depend on the situation. Qin Chuan wasn't surprised by this. Although he was now a consecrator of the Tushan family, he was different from other consecrators. He didn't sign any contract with the Tushan family, so there was no need for the Tushan family to offend someone they shouldn't offend for him. Moreover, Qin Chuan wasn't the kind of person who liked to cause trouble. Unless trouble came to him, he wouldn't cause any problems. It was a long journey from Tushan Mountain Villa to the Cosmic Whirlpool. They had to pass through 9 galaxies to reach a region near the Black Universe. If the Tushan family hadn't announced this location, no one would have guessed that there was an ancient human ruin hidden here. After nearly a month of traveling, the Tushan family's spaceship finally arrived at the area of broken stars, near the space whirlpool. At this time, there were already many spaceships around the space whirlpool. Qin Chuan stood by the porthole and looked at the spaceships that filled the sky. He said in a low voice, "There are still 2 days before the opening of the ancient human ruin." Ever since he came to this universe, the human race had always been a race that lived in the records and discussions of people. Qin Chuan had never been in close contact with the ancient human race, nor had he seen any relics left by the ancient human race. This time, entering the ancient human ruin would be the first time he came into contact with the ancient human race. As a human, his feelings were somewhat complicated and sad. With my current strength, I don't know when I'll be able to find the way back to the banished land. When will I be able to see teacher Ningya and Chongqing again? I don't know how strong I have to be able to reveal my identity to the public. How will I be able to bring everyone out of the banished land and return to this universe as a human? There's also the monster race. The glory of the ancient monster race will be restored. Thinking of this, Qin Chuan's gaze towards the cosmic whirlpool in front of him gradually became firm. Restoring the glory of the human race and the monster race is the first step starting from here. Chapter 981. 3 days of waiting passed in the blink of an eye. When there was less than an hour left before the opening of the ancient human ruins, cultivators at the spirit severing stage and above were already standing outside the cosmic vortex. There was no lack of Dongshu stage cultivators among them. As for cultivators below the spirit severing stage, they weren't qualified to participate in this event. Qin Chuan stood together with the Tushan clan people and looked around. Soon, he found Ao Feng in the crowd. When he saw Ao Feng bowing to Stam, Qin Chuan frowned slightly and turned his gaze elsewhere. He didn't want to pay too much attention to Ao Feng. At this moment, he seemed to see a familiar figure from the corner of his eyes. However, when he looked carefully, he found that the figure had disappeared. Strange, I felt like I saw someone familiar the last time I participated in the super auction. This time, it's the same feeling again. Qin Chuan frowned and looked ahead. If this feeling only appeared once, it might be an illusion. However, if it appeared again, it was most likely not an illusion. Who is it? While Qin Chuan was thinking about this question, an extremely bright light suddenly came from the cosmic vortex in front of him. When this light lit up, the Tushan clan people suddenly started talking. The ancient human ruins are about to open. Everyone, get ready. Hold the jade tokens and rush in. Hearing these people's conversation, Qin Chuan subconsciously tightened his grip on the jade token in his hand. When the light gradually condensed into a silver-white ball of light, the Tushan clan people immediately moved. 500 people rushed towards the silver-white ball of light. Qin Chuan immediately followed after seeing this. When the others saw the Tushan clan people moving, they also immediately took action. They all rushed towards the silver-white ball of light with jade tokens in hand. The cosmic vortex, which should have been a great resistance to them, seemed to be in another space. It didn't affect them at all. Countless people rushed into the silver-white ball of light and disappeared. Buzz. Almost immediately after the teleportation, Qin Chuan opened his eyes and looked around, collecting information about his surroundings. From the terrain, it could be seen that he was in a wasteland. There were broken walls and ruins everywhere, and there were even flames of war that had not stopped for thousands of years. Qin Chuan landed firmly on the ground and looked around vigilantly. After discovering that there was no danger, he heaved a sigh of relief. However, he did not let his guard down. Instead, he continued to gather information about his surroundings without slacking off. There is no danger. Alert lifted. Qin Chuan murmured in a low voice as he slowly straightened his body. Without a map, He did not know where he was at this time. He could only slowly explore step by step. Whoosh! Qinchuan moved towards the east at a normal speed. According to Tu Shanyu, most of the 5 elemental magic formations were in the east. As long as he kept moving east, he would definitely see the 5 elemental magic formations and meet other people. When Qinchuan moved continuously in the wasteland for 3 days, he finally stopped. It was not because he had reached his destination, but because he had encountered some trouble. Looking at the void creatures that were squatting beside the corpses and eating, Qinchuan could not help but squint his eyes. He slowly moved back, intending to take a detour. However, at this moment, the void creatures also noticed Qinchuan's existence. They all looked at Qinchuan with their dark eyes filled with evil intentions. Roar! These void creatures roared at Qinchuan with murderous intent and then suddenly pounced on Qinchuan. Buzz! The void creatures' figures flashed in the air and suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, they appeared behind Qinchuan. They actually had the ability to travel through the void. In terms of short-distance movement, they were even faster than teleportation. Just as the void creatures were about to use their sharp claws to pierce Qinchuan's chest, Qinchuan's figure suddenly turned into a blue lightning and disappeared. Immediately after, a thunderbolt descended and hit the void creatures hard. Bang! An iron fist appeared above the void creature's head and blasted it into the ground. Gravel flew everywhere and the void creature's head was smashed. Qinchuan raised his hand and looked at the dark purple blood on his hand. He frowned slightly and then looked at the other 3 void creatures around him. He said coldly, "There are 3 more." Just as Qinchuan was about to kill the remaining 3 void creatures, these void creatures retreated spiritually. They actually wanted to retreat and were unwilling to fight with Qinchuan directly. Qinchuan saw this but did not have the intention to kill them all. He watched the 3 void creatures leave. When he could no longer sense the aura of these void creatures, he just casually glanced at the corpses on the ground and then continued to move towards the east. After Qinchuan left, the corpse that was supposed to be dead suddenly moved. He suddenly sat up and panted heavily. The pain in his abdomen deeply stimulated his brain and nerves, causing his face to become extremely ferocious. "I'm saved. I'm saved." The bloody figure raised his head and looked in the direction where Qinchuan left and said softly, "He found out that I'm still alive. He didn't save me nor kill me, but he still saved me." Looking at the corpse of the void creature on the ground, the figure got up from the ground with some difficulty. He covered the intestines that fell out from his abdomen and walked towards the distance step by step. Qinchuan didn't know how big this ancient human ruin was, but he knew very well that he had run for at least 100,000 kilometers. Yet, he still hadn't seen the existence of the 5 elements talisman array. He hadn't even seen a single person. Just when Qinchuan was wondering if he ran in the wrong direction, a bright red light suddenly lit up in front of him. "What is that?" Qinchuan saw the red light and was slightly stunned. He subconsciously quickened his pace and quickly approached the place where the red light was shining. Whoosh! Qinchuan landed on the ground and looked at the huge charm array that was engraved on the ground in front of him. His eyes flashed and he said excitedly, "I've finally found you, the 5 elements charm array." It turned out that the red light was released by the fire attribute charm array on the ground. However, Qinchuan did not know why this fire attribute charm array suddenly released light. Just when Qinchuan was thinking about this, dozens of figures suddenly appeared around him and blocked him from the charm array. The leader stared sharply at Qinchuan and said in a deep voice, "This place has been occupied by our bright moon palace. If you know what's good for you, leave quickly." Chapter 982. Qinchuan tactfully chose to retreat when faced with the menacing crowd of the Bright Moon Palace. He had no intention of fighting for this talisman array. He only wanted to observe this talisman array. Since the people of the Bright Moon Palace didn't want him to get close, then he would observe it from a distance. The people of the Bright Moon Palace were relieved when they saw Qinchuan retreat. They began to discuss what had happened earlier. We failed again this time. We've already lost 2 talisman array masters. We can't continue like this. But the method to break this array is too harsh. We're completely helpless. In my opinion, we should continue to occupy this place and wait for the main force to arrive before making any plans. Not far away, Qinchuan listened to the discussion of the people of the Bright Moon Palace. He couldn't help but look at the red talisman array. He muttered with some curiosity, "The method to break this array is too harsh? How do they know what the method to break this array is? Could it be that there's some hint?" With this thought, Qinchuan looked at the surroundings. Soon, he saw a cyan stone tablet that was the height of a person beside the talisman array. Great Heavenly Fire Array, Level 5 Battle Array. It can be broken according to the principle of mutual restraint of the 5 elements. Looking at the words written on the stone tablet, Qinchuan's eyes couldn't help but flash with a subtle expression. Although this talisman array didn't look simple, the power it released before didn't seem to have reached the level of a level 5 battle array. Presumably, it was because the power of the Great Heavenly Fire Array had faded a little over the years. Or, the person who broke the array before couldn't fully activate the power of the Great Heavenly Fire Array. If it was the former, then it would be fine. If it was the latter, then it would be somewhat difficult. Just as Qinchuan was thinking about this, a golden light suddenly lit up not far away. It seemed that someone was challenging to break another talisman array. However, it seemed that they had also failed. Qinchuan looked at the surroundings and said in a low voice, "I wonder how many talisman arrays there are in the surroundings. Are there any that haven't been occupied yet?" As he spoke, Qinchuan had already moved. He quickly moved around the surroundings, looking for a talisman array that had not yet been occupied. Fortunately, he found a talisman array that had not yet been occupied. Moreover, it was an Earth Attribute Talisman Array. 1,000 feet tall cliff, what a good name! Qinchuan looked at the introduction of the talisman array on the stone tablet and said with a smile, "It just so happens that I have just learned the world of wood. I can use it to try and see if I can break your battle array." According to the principle of mutual restraint between the 5 elements, the world of wood had a high probability of restraining the 1,000 cliff erection. However, Qinchuan did not immediately take action. He decided to be careful and observe patiently before making a move. However, just as Qinchuan was about to study the 1,000 feet cliff before him, several figures suddenly appeared behind him. "You get lost. This place has already been occupied by our Heavenly Travel Union." The leader looked at Qinchuan with an extremely arrogant gaze. It was obvious that he did not take the lone Qinchuan seriously. With his strength in the late stage of the divine transformation realm, there was indeed no need for him to take Qinchuan, a mere cultivator in the middle stage of the divine transformation realm, seriously. Hearing the sound behind him, Qinchuan slowly turned his head and looked at the few figures behind him. He sneered, "While I am studying the talisman array, I have no time to deal with you. You better leave quickly." When the leader heard Qinchuan's words, he was immediately enraged. He shouted at Qinchuan, "Brat, you are courting death. Go kill him." In a place like the primordial human ruins, even between people on the same side there could be dispute. Killing and robbing. It was a very normal thing for different forces to fight. No matter which force Qinchuan belonged to, they would not feel any psychological burden when they attacked him. Coincidentally, Qinchuan also thought the same. When he saw the people from the Heavenly Travel Union rushing towards him aggressively, Qinchuan's mind moved. The law of thunder instantly triggered the power of the heavenly tribulation in the bodies of the people from the Heavenly Travel Union. When the power of the heavenly tribulation suddenly erupted, none of them were spared. They were all turned into ashes in an instant. The reason why Qin Chuan used such a killing move at the beginning was that he did not want to waste time on these people. Secondly, he did not want to cause too much of a commotion and attract other people's attention. Therefore, his best choice was to end the battle quickly. Most importantly, Qin Chuan planned to use the people from the Heavenly Travel Union to establish his prestige and warn the people around him not to have any ideas about him. Just as the people from the Heavenly Travel Union appeared with great fanfare to force Qin Chuan away, the surrounding forces who occupied the other talisman arrays also noticed the situation here. They originally thought that Qin Chuan would either escape in a sorry state or die in the hands of the people from the Heavenly Travel Union. However, the outcome greatly exceeded their expectations. Instant kill. When they saw the people from the Heavenly Travel Union turn into ashes in an instant in front of Qin Chuan, everyone could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their faces were filled with shock. At the same time, they looked at Qin Chuan with eyes filled with extreme fear. This guy can actually kill 6 people from the Heavenly Travel Union in an instant. The strongest is at the late stage of the divine transformation realm. Doesn't this mean that he also has the ability to kill us in an instant? The people from the Bright Moon Palace who had shouted at Qin Chuan to retreat were now covered in cold sweat. If they had known that Qin Chuan was so powerful, their attitude towards Qin Chuan would have been much better. They would have even been willing to give up the talisman array they occupied. He doesn't look like someone who likes to take the initiative to cause trouble. Someone whispered, otherwise, just now we would have. No matter what, we have to show our attitude. You go and apologize to him and explain. The leader casually pointed at someone and instructed, remember to have a better attitude. In order to prevent Qin Chuan from settling the score later, they decided to apologize first. This was the cultivation world, the law of the jungle. Just as the people from the Bright Moon Palace were about to apologize and the other forces were about to test Qin Chuan suddenly lifted his foot and walked into the talisman array. In the next moment, Qin Chuan's figure disappeared. Seeing this scene, everyone was extremely shocked. Qin Chuan had just arrived here not long ago. He had not even tested the array before directly entering it. Wasn't this too hasty? However, because of the previous incident, Qin Chuan had already left a strong impression in everyone's hearts. At this time, Qin Chuan's actions seemed hasty, but everyone felt that it was not impossible for Qin Chuan to break this talisman array. This guy actually entered the array so quickly. The people from the Bright Moon Palace were stunned when they saw Qin Chuan's actions. They did not know whether to say that Qin Chuan was confident or conceited. At this time, other than the people from the Bright Moon Palace, the people from the other forces had temporarily put down their research on the talisman array and gathered here. They wanted to see whether Qin Chuan would die in the array or break out with a reward. Chapter 983. The moment Qin Chuan stepped into the glyph array, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. A precipitous mountain peak that towered into the clouds abruptly appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Qin Chuan raised his head and looked at the smooth and flat mountain wall in front of him. He sighed and said, "It's really worthy of being called 1,000 feet high cliff. Even with my strength, I'm afraid it would be a very difficult thing to climb up this precipitous mountain wall. I just don't know how to break the glyph array." Just when Qin Chuan was thinking about this, a dignified voice suddenly sounded beside his ear. When the mountain wall collapses, those who can persist for 10 seconds without being crushed will pass the stage. Those who can break the wall will pass the stage. Hearing this dignified voice, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned for a moment. Soon after, his face revealed a strange expression. He really didn't expect that the glyph array test would actually use this mountain to crush him. Qin Chuan slowly walked to the front of the mountain wall. He raised his hand and smashed a fist on the mountain wall. The mountain wall gave off a dull sound, but it didn't show any signs of breaking. Not even a fist print was left behind. With the sturdiness of this mountain, once it collapses, I'm afraid it's enough to crush any cultivator below the Dongshu stage into minced meat. Qin Chuan smiled slightly. However, I don't intend to use my physical body to withstand it. While speaking, Qin Chuan had already taken out the Qilin pen from the storage ring and started to inscribe the glyph array. Realm of Myriad Wood. It's already been 9 minutes and that person still hasn't come out. The people of the Bright Moon Palace looked at the glyph array that was so quiet that there wasn't any movement. The expression on their faces became somewhat subtle. No matter how strong a person was, if he was too conceited, he might die. Don't be anxious, it hasn't even been 10 minutes. Someone said, according to the settings of these glyph arrays, no matter if the challenger takes the initiative to break the glyph array or not, the test will automatically start after 10 minutes. At that time, no matter if he breaks the glyph array or dies, the glyph array will display it. There's only 1 minute left. Let's wait patiently for a while. Another person said, if this person dies, then we can be considered to be relieved. If he can come out alive, then it means that he has the ability to break the glyph array by himself. This is very terrifying. In my opinion, he's most likely going to. Before this person could finish speaking, the talisman formation that had been silent all this time suddenly lit up. In the next moment, the talisman formation actually shattered with a loud bang and turned into a door that was overflowing with light and color. A figure slowly walked out of the door. If it wasn't Qin Chuan, who else could it be? Everyone looked at Qin Chuan's figure as he slowly walked out of the door, and then looked at the broken talisman array. They couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Qin Chuan didn't succeed in the trial. He succeeded in breaking through the trial. One had to know that breaking through a level was completely different from breaking through a level. Although breaking through a level would give one a reward, the reward wasn't very generous. However, if one were to break through a level, then one would be able to obtain all the rewards in the level, and the rewards would definitely be more than 10 times more generous than breaking through a level. These forces had all heard some news before. Back when Tushan family occupied this ancient human ruin alone, they had succeeded in breaking through it for a few times, but no one had ever succeeded. Qin Chuan should be the first person to break out of seclusion. Just when everyone was extremely shocked by Qin Chuan breaking through, Qin Chuan lowered his head and thought about the possibility of breaking through the other talisman arrays. Even with the power of the world of wood, I can barely break through this 1,000-foot wall. I don't know any other type of level 5 battle array, so it's probably extremely difficult to break through it. Even if the power of the talisman array is greatly increased due to the principle of mutual promotion and suppression, it's only barely able to hold on until I succeed in breaking through the trial. Furthermore, there's a high probability of danger. After thinking about it over and over again, Qin Chuan decided to give up on the idea of continuing to break through the trial. If he waited until the runic sword had completely absorbed the power of the sky wind path, then it would help him comprehend the sky wind path and master a new level 5 battle array. Perhaps he would come back and try again. However, he didn't want to take the risk now. Just when Qin Chuan was about to leave this place and continue to look for the next Earth-type talisman array to try to break through the trial, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. I'm Feng Yun of the Dauphin Corporation. May I ask how I should address you, friend? Feng Yun looked at Qin Chuan with an extremely respectful gaze. His attitude was very sincere, and his posture was also very humble. Qin Chuan looked at Feng Yun and didn't introduce himself. Instead, he asked, "What do you want?" "Friend, I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to cooperate with you." Feng Yun looked at Qin Chuan and smiled. "We can work together to break through the trial, and you can choose the rewards first." Hearing Feng Yun's words, Qin Chuan sneered and asked, "So are you going to work together to break through the trial, or do you want me to help you break through?" Of course we're going to work together to break through the trial. Feng Yun said with a serious face. If the people of the Dauphin Corporation contribute less than 70%, then all the rewards will belong to you, friend. Qin Chuan didn't beat around the bush and said straightforwardly, "You can make an oath. If you're not willing, then forget it." Well, if that's the case, then I'll make an oath here. If the people of the Dauphin Corporation contribute less than 70%, then all the rewards after we break through the trial will belong to you. Feng Yun looked at Qin Chuan and said with a serious face, "If we succeed in breaking through the trial, you can choose the rewards first. We can't raise any objections to the above conditions, and we can't harm you after the trial. If we violate it, we will be punished by the heavens." Since the oath had been made, Qin Chuan also let down his guard against Feng Yun. He asked Feng Yun, "Which talisman formation does the Dauphin Corporation occupy?" Feng Yun immediately smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "The vast sea formation. This way, please follow me." Hearing Feng Yun's words, Qin Chuan followed behind Feng Yun and walked toward the vast sea formation. When the people of the other forces saw this scene, they all beat their chests and stamped their feet. Their faces were full of regret. Why didn't they think of cooperating with Qin Chuan before? Now that Feng Yun was one step ahead of them, they could only look on enviously. Soon, Feng Yun brought Qin Chuan to the vast sea formation. He pointed to the dark blue talisman formation in front of them and said to Qin Chuan, "Friend, this is the vast sea formation. We have tried it once before. Although we succeeded in breaking through the trial, there is still a certain gap between us and breaking through." Hearing Feng Yun's words, Qin Chuan asked curiously, "How many people can enter this talisman formation at a time?" 10 people. This is the limit, and we happen to have 9 people on our side. Feng Yun smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "I think this is the arrangement of the heavens to let us cooperate with you." Hearing Feng Yun's words, Qin Chuan laughed and responded, "Don't say beautiful words. You'd better tell me what the conditions are for breaking through the trial. This way we can see if there is any possibility of cooperation. If we can only succeed in breaking through the trial, then don't waste time." Chapter 984. Feng Yun didn't care about Qin Chuan's attitude. He smiled at Qin Chuan and said, "Different situations call for different actions. If you want to break this vast ocean formation, you have to fill it up." Hearing Feng Yun's words, Qin Chuan asked Feng Yun, "In that case, after your previous attempts, you should only be able to fill up about 70% of the vast ocean formation, right?" Feng Yun chuckled and replied, "You guessed right. We were only able to fill up about 75% of the vast ocean formation in our previous attempts. This is also why I have the confidence to say that we don't need any rewards if our contribution is less than 70%. If that's the case, then let's prepare to break through." Qin Chuan said to Feng Yun, "Do you need to rest?" "Not at all." Feng Yun said to Qin Chuan with great anticipation, "I can't wait to see what kind of generous rewards we can get after breaking through." Although Qin Chuan had already received a reward for breaking through, Feng Yun was very tactful and didn't ask Qin Chuan about it. He didn't want to offend Qin Chuan just to satisfy his curiosity and cause the partnership to break down. The loss outweighed the gain. When Qin Chuan, Feng Yun, and the others stepped into the vast ocean formation and disappeared, the people from the other forces came forward and began to wait for the result. If Qin Chuan could join forces with Feng Yun and the others to break through, then they might have to learn from Feng Yun and form a partnership with Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan stood on the shore and looked at the vast sea in front of him. He said to Feng Yun beside him, "Let me know when you're ready. I can start at any time." Feng Yun immediately went to ask the others about their preparations. After confirming that there were no problems, he said to Qin Chuan, "We can begin." When he heard what Feng Yun said, Qin Chuan withdrew the qilin brush and started to inscribe the 5 elements cycle talisman formation combination. Feng Yun stood at the side and saw the talisman formation combination that was gradually taking form under Qinchuan's brush, and a wisp of a subtle expression couldn't help but flash past the bottom of his eyes. Could it be that Qinchuan relied on this talisman formation combination to successfully break through earlier? However, this was obviously not the time to think about these questions. They were about to start the trial. If they could not fill up the vast ocean formation in front of them within 10 minutes, they would fail the trial again. And after this failure, they would be punished by not being able to attempt the trial again for 10 days. When everyone had successfully inscribed the Earth attribute talisman formation, they started the work of filling up the sea together. Along with a large amount of sand pouring into the vast ocean formation, the sea level of the vast ocean formation gradually rose, and at the same time, the seawater was also rapidly decreasing. Time passed by quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 8 minutes had passed. Through everyone's efforts, although they had already filled up more than half of the vast ocean formation, there was still a large gap. The remaining 2 minutes were obviously not enough to support everyone to successfully break through. Just when Qinchuan discovered this point, Feng Yun also noticed this point. His face suddenly became unsightly as he said in a deep voice, "Friend, if you still don't have any methods, please use them. I can promise that you will monopolize 40% of the rewards." When he heard Feng Yun's words, Qinchuan slightly frowned and said in a low voice, "I can give it a try." After saying this, Qinchuan multitasked. On one hand, he controlled the 5 elements rotation talisman formation to continue filling up the sea. On the other hand, he began to inscribe a level 4 wood attribute talisman formation. However, this was an auxiliary formation called the green wood talisman formation. Seeing Qinchuan's actions, Feng Yun frowned and asked in confusion, "Friend, why are you inscribing the green wood talisman formation? What's the use of it?" Hearing this, Qinchuan explained, "The 5 elements reinforce and subdue each other. The earth attribute can restrain the water attribute, and the water attribute can strengthen the wood attribute. Although the green wood talisman formation is only an auxiliary formation, it can absorb the power of the vast ocean formation and fill up the sea." When he heard Qinchuan's explanation, Feng Yun suddenly understood. With a face full of surprise, he said to Qinchuan, "Why didn't I think of this? Friend, you are really too smart." "Okay, don't worry about breaking the formation." Qinchuan pursed his lips. "I can't be distracted. I can't be distracted." When Feng Yun heard this, he immediately shut his mouth and calmly activated the formation plate in front of him to control the formation to fill up the sea. He seemed to have seen the hope of victory. In the outside world, just as everyone was curiously and expectantly waiting for the results of Qinchuan's group breaking through, several figures suddenly appeared nearby. Looking at their clothes, they should be people from the Heavenly Travel Union. Whoosh! The leader landed in front of the crowd. Facing everyone, he asked in a gloomy tone, "I am Deacon Moses of the Heavenly Travel Union. Earlier, I sensed that someone from our Heavenly Travel Union died here. Do you know who did it?" When everyone heard Moses's question, they were slightly stunned. Then, they subconsciously looked at the vast ocean formation not far away. Noticing the change in everyone's gaze, the people from the Heavenly Travel Union also looked over there. "The murderer of our Heavenly Travel Union's members is breaking through the formation?" Hearing the words of the people from the Heavenly Travel Union, someone whispered, "It's not breaking through, it's breaking through." Breaking through? Moses was stunned for a moment. He asked, "Could it be that the person who did it is an almighty Dongshu stage cultivator? If it was really some almighty Dongshu stage cultivator who killed their Heavenly Travel Union's members, then he would have to carefully consider whether or not he should continue to hold on to this matter. No, it's a mid-divine transformation stage cultivator. However, He does have the ability to break through. He already broke through one formation before. Among the crowd, there were people who continued to leak information about Qinchuan to Moses. Furthermore, he has a very strange ability. He can instantly kill his enemies. When Moses heard this, he couldn't help but furrow his brows. A mid-divine transformation stage cultivator had the ability to instantly kill people. Furthermore, the person he killed was a late divine transformation stage cultivator? How could this be possible? Just as Moses was thinking about this, the vast ocean formation suddenly shattered, turning into a door overflowing with light. Several figures walked out from within, each of their faces brimming with excitement. Great, we've finally succeeded. Is this the reward for breaking through? It's too generous, it's too satisfying. Alright, quiet down, keep a low profile. Feng Yun's voice rang out, ordering the excited members to keep quiet. When everyone heard Feng Yun's words, they immediately quieted down. However, the excitement on their faces was still difficult to conceal. When the people outside saw Feng Yun's group and Qinchuan break through once again, their expressions became extremely interesting. They had been entrenched here for 3 days, and it was very difficult for them to even break through the formation. However, Qinchuan had only been here for less than an hour, and he had already broken through 2 formations consecutively. He had received 2 rewards for breaking through the formation. This gap was too big. Chapter 985. Friend, I really have to thank you this time. Our Dauphin group will definitely keep our promise and keep the secret. Feng Yun looked at Qinchuan with an excited expression on his face. Although Qinchuan took the best 40% of the reward, the remaining 60% was already generous enough. They were already very satisfied. Qinchuan heard this and looked deeply at Feng Yun. Then he said to Feng Yun, I hope you remember the oath you once made. Let's part ways here. Qinchuan knew that after this round, there would definitely be other forces imitating the Dauphin group to seek cooperation with him. However, he didn't want to waste too much time here. Compared to sharing the reward with others, he was more willing to swallow all the rewards alone. Just as Qinchuan was about to leave, a tall figure suddenly appeared in front of Qinchuan and blocked his path. I am Moses, the deacon of the Heavenly Federation. Are you the one who killed a member of the Heavenly Federation? Faced with Moses's question, Qinchuan chuckled and turned his gaze to the surroundings. When he noticed those people who were avoiding his gaze, Qinchuan knew who had betrayed him. However, he wasn't surprised. After all, they were neither relatives nor friends. It was normal for the other party to betray him. However, after he solved the problem at hand, if these people couldn't come up with something substantial to compensate him, then they wouldn't have an easy time. What are you looking at? Moses saw that Qinchuan didn't respond to him. Instead, he was looking left and right. He said with some embarrassment, Which family are you from? How dare you be so rude? When Qinchuan heard this, he turned his head to look at Moses and said indifferently, I'm just a loose cultivator. If you want to avenge your companions, then hurry up. I'm very busy. Hearing Qinchuan's arrogant response, Moses was immediately furious. His aura surged, vividly displaying the pressure of a soul formation expert. However, in the face of Moses's oppression, Qinchuan was still calm. He didn't put Moses in his eyes at all. You're courting death. Moses was furious. He raised his hand and waved it at Qinchuan. Thick spiritual energy surged out like a monstrous wave toward Qinchuan. Qinchuan's figure flickered in the face of Moses' powerful outburst at such a close distance. He turned into a bolt of lightning and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared 1,000 meters away and quickly flew into the distance. When Moses saw this, he thought that Qinchuan was afraid and immediately chased after him. Let's see where you can run to, Moses growled. He took out a golden rope and threw it at Qinchuan. The golden rope was called the Heaven Locking Rope. It was a top-grade Taoist instrument. It was specially used to trap enemies. Almost no one below the Dongshu stage could resist it. Although Qinchuan's flying speed was very fast, the heaven-locking rope was also not slow. It was closely following behind Qinchuan. As long as Qinchuan relaxed a little, the heaven-locking rope could immediately lock Qinchuan, not giving him any chance to struggle. Ha ha ha, run. I'll see where you can run to. Moses saw Qinchuan's embarrassed appearance and laughed proudly. There has never been a cultivator below the Dongshu stage who could escape the pursuit of the heaven-locking rope. Today you will definitely die. If you can hand over the reward for passing the test, maybe I will spare your life. Hearing Moses' shout behind him, Qinchuan sneered and said, I thought you really came for revenge. It turns out that you are just coveting my reward for passing the test. Do you know what the reward is? Hearing Qinchuan mention the reward for passing the test, Moses immediately asked excitedly, What is the reward for passing the test? Tell me. When Qinchuan heard this, he chuckled and said to Moses, Then let this rope stop first. Let's have a good chat. Humph, do you think I am a 3-year-old child? How can I be deceived by you? Moses sneered. When I catch you and unlock the restriction on your storage ring, I can naturally search your things at will. At that time, I will know what the reward for passing the test is without you telling me. Hey, you don't really think I am running away because I am afraid of you, do you? At this moment, Qinchuan suddenly stopped running and turned abruptly to face the heaven-locking rope. When the heaven-locking rope approached Qinchuan and wanted to trap Qinchuan, Qinchuan's figure flashed again and suddenly appeared in front of Moses. God's sword essence. Qinchuan roared and raised his hand to wave his sword at Moses. The golden sword essence pierced Moses' chest in an instant, giving Moses no chance to react or dodge at all. Puff! The sword essence penetrated Moses' body, causing him to be severely injured. Moses immediately screamed and wanted to distance himself from Qinchuan. However, how could Qinchuan give Moses the chance to do so? He was about to detonate the power of thunder in his hand and send Moses to hell. At this moment, Moses' heaven-locking rope arrived behind Qinchuan and wrapped around Qinchuan's hands and feet. In order to avoid the heaven-locking rope, Qinchuan had to flash again and distance himself from Moses. Thus, Moses dodged a bullet. Damn bastard! I will kill you! Moses was furious. He really didn't expect that he would almost die in Qinchuan's hands because of his carelessness. If he was really killed by Qinchuan's sneak attack, it would be a shame that could not be washed away even in death. In the face of the angry Moses, Qinchuan had no intention of continuing the fight. He turned around and fled again. Moses wanted to continue chasing after Qinchuan, but he was extremely afraid of Qinchuan's strange skills, so he decided to find a place to recuperate for the time being and wait until he gathered with the others to chase after Qinchuan. With the heaven-locking rope entangling him, Qinchuan would definitely not be able to escape. Qinchuan kept moving forward, but his mind was recalling the previous fight with Moses. Without using my trump card, my combat strength should be on par with that guy. Although my sneak attack succeeded, as long as he reacted, it would be difficult for me to kill him in an instant. In other words, my current strength should be around the peak of the divine transformation realm. Unfortunately, that guy is not weak and there is no remnant of the heavenly tribulation in his body. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to beat around the bush with him. Thinking of this, Qinchuan turned around and looked at the heaven-locking rope that was following closely behind him. This thing was really annoying. If it wasn't for this thing harassing him, he might not have chosen to escape earlier. I have to think of a way to get rid of this heaven-locking rope. Otherwise, it's not a good thing to keep being entangled like this. Qinchuan thought about the methods he had mastered, but he couldn't think of any reliable method. So, he once again turned his attention to the little armored dragon. Little armored dragon, don't sleep anymore. I've brought you something delicious. Hearing Qinchuan's call, the little armored dragon, who was hugging the monster core and sleeping soundly in its brain, opened its eyes in a daze. Its chubby face revealed a hint of curiosity. I heard, there's something delicious. Chapter 986. Little armored dragon appeared on Qinchuan's shoulder with a whoosh. It looked around curiously and asked naively, "Where is the delicious food?" Qinchuan pointed at the heaven-locking rope that was chasing closely behind him and said to the little armored dragon, "That's the one." Before Qinchuan could utter the words of deception that he had prepared, the little armored dragon impatiently rushed forward, opened its mouth wide, and swallowed the entire heaven-locking rope into its stomach. Qinchuan was shocked when he saw this. "Hey, you won't get indigestion if you swallow it in one bite, right? That's a top-grade Taoist artifact." Hearing Qinchuan's words, little armored dragon looked back at Qinchuan and patted its belly. It frowned slightly and replied, "It doesn't taste good, but I'm not afraid." Qinchuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard little armored dragon's reply. This guy really ate everything. He wondered if little armored dragon could eat a sacred artifact with its teeth. He wondered if there would be any changes if it ate too much. Just as Qinchuan was thinking about these things, Moses, who was far away, spat out a mouthful of blood and roared angrily. "Damn it! How could my mental connection with the heaven-locking rope be cut off? Who did this?" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as Moses was roaring at the sky, dozens of figures landed beside him and asked about Moses's situation with concern. Moses roared angrily at the crowd, "Immediately mobilize all forces and inform everyone to be wary of that guy. We must capture him alive. I want to pull out his tendons and skin him alive." At this time, Qinchuan still didn't know that he was on the Heavenly Federation's wanted list. However, even if he knew, he wouldn't care too much. This was because he was very clear that after the heaven-locking rope was eaten by the little armored dragon, he had completely offended Moses. Moses wouldn't let him go. Moreover, he didn't have time to think about whether Moses was happy or not, because he was busy breaking through. Breakthrough successful. Reward: 1 Heavenly Heart Pill, 10 Spirit Linking Pills, 1 Level 5 Earth Attribute Auxiliary Array, and 1 top-grade Tao Artifact, the Omnidirectional Sword. Qinchuan's eyes lit up when he heard the awe-inspiring voice announcing the contents of the reward. He said joyfully, "The reward is actually the Heavenly Heart Pill." Qinchuan clearly remembered that Tushan Yu once told him that taking the Heaven Heart Pill could allow a divinity transformation cultivator to break through a small level without any side effect. It could be said that this was one of the most powerful alchemy skills of the ancient human race, and was priceless. As for the Spirit Connecting Pill, it could help a cultivator quickly recover their spiritual energy. It could play a very important role in a battle. Qinchuan's previous 2 rewards were mostly spirit-connecting pills, which could not be compared to the Heaven Heart Pill at all. Sure enough, it's better to clear the stage alone. Qinchuan laughed heartily. He put away the reward and walked out of the door. After observing his surroundings, he quickly flew forward, preparing to find the next Earth Attribute Talisman array to continue breaking through the level. While Qinchuan was searching for the Earth Attribute Talisman matrices to break through, the news of him breaking through 2 talisman matrices in succession and obtaining the full reward had also spread throughout the ruins. Many people already knew that there was a mysterious youth who had the ability to break through all the talisman matrices alone. If any force could recruit him, it would be equivalent to obtaining all the rewards in the ruins. For a time, all the forces were looking for this mysterious young man, but very few people knew what he looked like. In the Dauphin Group's camp, Feng Yun, who was Qinchuan's former partner, was summoned by the leader of the Dauphin Group, Feng Guangyuan. This was the first time Feng Yun was so close to a big shot like Feng Guangyuan outside of the group's annual meeting. Feng Guangyuan was a middle-aged man with a relatively friendly appearance. He always had a faint smile on his face. Although he didn't make people feel close to him, he didn't make people feel alienated either. He looked at the somewhat excited Feng Yun standing in front of him and asked with a smile, "I heard that you once cooperated with that mysterious young man. Do you know his name and origin?" When Feng Yun heard this, he immediately replied respectfully, reporting to the manager, "Although I have cooperated with that mysterious youth, he didn't tell me his name. I also don't know which force he came from. However, he previously claimed to be a rogue cultivator to the people of the Sky Walking Union. In addition, he acted alone. Maybe he really is a rogue cultivator. Whether he is a rogue cultivator or not, you should still remember his appearance. Draw him." Feng Guangyuan said to Feng Yun, "As long as we have his portrait, it won't be difficult for us to find him." Hearing Feng Guangyuan's words, Feng Yun was somewhat troubled. "Sorry, manager, I can't do that." Feng Guangyuan was slightly stunned and asked puzzledly, "Why? When the 9 of us broke through, we made a heavenly oath that we would never mention his appearance to anyone in any way. If we break the oath, the 9 of us will die without a burial ground." Feng Yun said with a helpless expression. That mysterious young man had already expected this, so he made preparations in advance. We were excited because we successfully broke through and made the oath without thinking much, so... Hearing Feng Yun's words, Feng Guangyuan couldn't help but laugh and said lightly, "This young man is very alert. It seems that he doesn't want to be found by us. However, you weren't the only people who saw his appearance at that time. If I go find the onlookers at that time to copy his portrait, it shouldn't have anything to do with you, right?" Feng Yun immediately replied respectfully, "The manager is wise." "Alright, what reward did you get after breaking through? Can't you tell me that?" Feng Guangyuan was quite curious about the reward for breaking through. After all, the difficulty of breaking through was very high. The reward shouldn't be too bad. This time, Feng Yun didn't feel troubled. Instead, he straightforwardly replied, "After breaking through, we got a total of 2 small revitalizing pills, 10 spirit communication pills, and 2 level 5 auxiliary formations." Small revitalizing pill? Feng Guangyuan was a little surprised. The legendary small revitalizing pill that can instantly heal one's injuries? Where is it? Let me see it quickly. Facing the anxious Feng Guangyuan, Feng Yun had a troubled expression and said softly, "The small revitalizing pill, we didn't get it. It was taken by that young man." "All of it?" Feng Guangyuan was shocked. "How could you let him take all of it?" "Back then, in order to cooperate with him, we made an oath to let him choose the reward first and take 40%. Feng Yun didn't dare to look at Feng Guangyuan's face. He lowered his head and said, "He chose 2 small revitalizing pills and gave the rest to us. We couldn't say much." Hearing Feng Yun's reply, Feng Guangyuan's face instantly darkened. Chapter 987. While Feng Guangyuan was asking Feng Yun about Qinchuan, some members of the Sky Travel Union had already begun to hunt down Qinchuan under the operation of Moses. Anyone who provided information about Qinchuan to the Sky Travel Union would be rewarded handsomely. For a moment, people were paying attention to Qinchuan's whereabouts in the ruins, hoping to exchange a generous reward with the Sky Travel Union. In a valley, over 100 Tushan family people gathered. This was the meeting place they chose before they entered the historical site. By now, most of the people who hadn't arrived yet were either sent to somewhere far away, or had already been sacrificed. "Third brother, have you heard about the Sky Travel Union?" Tushan Hao looked at the wanted order in his hand and said to Tushan Lei, "It's said that the people of the Sky Travel Union wanted to snatch the talisman matrix occupied by Qinchuan. In the end, they were killed by Qinchuan instead. Therefore, the Sky Travel Union has been hunting down Qinchuan everywhere. Tushan Lei heard this and said indifferently, "The Sky Travel Union is getting worse and worse. This kind of thing has caused a huge uproar. Don't they feel ashamed?" Hearing Tushan Lei's words, Tushan Hao asked, "According to you, should we help Qinchuan?" "Don't worry for the time being." Tushan Lei said to Tushan Hao, "Although Qinchuan has a cooperative relationship with our Qin clan, he isn't one of our people after all. He isn't a consecrator who has signed a contract with us. We don't need to be in such a hurry to help him. When the Sky Travel Union forces him into a desperate situation, the effect will be better if we stand out then." Tushan Hao chuckled and asked, "Third brother, you want to take this opportunity to completely subdue Qinchuan? It would be a pity if such a talent couldn't become a member of our Tushan clan." Tushan Lei smiled faintly. "I don't know how he broke through the barrier alone. Back then, our Tushan clan sacrificed a lot of 5th-level talisman matrix masters. None of them could do this. I'm also very curious about this." Tushan Hao looked at Tushan Lei and said, "It's said that he has mastered a combination of spell symbols with the nature of 5 elements. Is that the reason why he can pass the test all by himself?" Tushan Lei nodded and said, "Maybe. But no matter what method he used, if we meet him, we have to ask him about it. Since the others can cooperate with him, there's no reason why our Tushan family can't do the same." From the beginning to the end, Tushan Lei and Tushan Hao never thought about whether Qinchuan had already mastered a level 5 battle formation or not. In their eyes, Qinchuan had only been learning Dao symbols for a month at most, and he couldn't possibly have learned Dao symbols already. In the wilderness, a small team of 8 people was advancing towards the ruins in front of them, hoping to find some valuable treasures in the ruins. In the team, a tall and thin figure held a wanted poster in his hand. He looked at the familiar face on the wanted poster with a complicated gaze. The people around him noticed his expression and couldn't help but frown. "Ao Feng, I'm telling you, this guy has become a wanted criminal of the Heavenly Travel Union. We can't have anything to do with him. If you're worried about his safety, you'd better leave the team and go find him immediately. Don't get us involved." Before this person's voice fell, another person added, "That's right, we're here to look for treasures. We don't want to offend a big force like the Heavenly Travel Union." Although these people all had some status and background, they could barely be regarded as a medium-sized force in the city of Trump. Compared with a big force like the Heavenly Travel Union, the gap was too big. Unless they didn't want to live anymore, they absolutely couldn't provoke the Heavenly Travel Union. Hearing everyone's words, Ao Feng's face couldn't help but show an extremely forced smile. He shattered the wanted poster in his hand and said to everyone, "I'm just looking at this wanted poster. I don't have any other thoughts. Don't misunderstand me." In this dangerous ancient human ruins, leaving the team and acting alone was tantamount to suicide. Ao Feng absolutely couldn't leave the team to find Qinchuan. "Wait a minute, I have a plan." At this moment, the person walking at the front suddenly turned his head and looked at Ao Feng. The expression in his eyes was extremely strange. What a pity! Qinchuan looked at the water attribute talisman array in front of him and helplessly scratched his head. Along the way, he had encountered many talisman arrays that had yet to be occupied. However, there were very few Earth attribute talisman arrays. Including the one at the beginning, he had only encountered 4 Earth attribute talisman arrays. It's already been 2 days, and I've only broken 4 Earth attribute talisman arrays. Although the reward for breaking a water attribute talisman array with Tianfeng Corporation is generous, if I can break all the talisman arrays I encounter, then the reward will be truly generous. Qinchuan sighed with a face of dissatisfaction. Little did he know that it was difficult for others to even succeed in breaking through. His continuous record of breaking through was enough to make him laugh in the entire ruins. If others knew about it, they would be envious to death. I don't know where else there are earth attribute charm arrays. I'll search for 3 more days. If I still can't find any, I'll go to the Tower of Babel. Qin Chuan had already made up his mind. He couldn't waste all his time on breaking through the array. There were still many treasures in the ruins waiting for him to find. Just as Qin Chuan was about to turn and leave, the runic sword in his mind suddenly became active. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He hurriedly asked the runic sword, "Big brother, have you finished absorbing the power of the heavenly wind path?" The runic sword didn't answer Qin Chuan's question. Instead, it directly answered Qin Chuan with actions. Just like the time when he comprehended the sunflower path, this time, Qin Chuan also comprehended the heavenly wind path in an instant and obtained a level 5 wind attribute battle array. Whirlwind. Good battle array, good name. Qin Chuan's face was full of smiles. He said with some pity, "It's a pity that I don't have the time to study this battle array. Otherwise, I would have one more trump card." Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, a charm array suddenly shattered not far from Qin Chuan, forming a large door with flowing lights. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan's eyes couldn't help but flash with a look of surprise. Someone actually broke through the array? I wonder how many of them worked together to break through the array. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, a tall figure slowly walked out from the large door. She wore a light yellow dress, and her delicate face was covered by a veil. Only a pair of cold eyes could be seen. When he saw this figure, Qin Chuan couldn't help but be slightly stunned. This figure was so familiar. Chapter 988. Just as Qin Chuan was looking at the woman in the yellow dress, the woman in the yellow dress also noticed Qin Chuan's existence. However, she just looked at Qin Chuan indifferently and then prepared to leave. Seeing that the woman in the yellow dress was about to leave, Qin Chuan hurriedly chased after her and said to the woman in the yellow dress, "Wait a minute. Please wait a minute." Hearing Qin Chuan's call, the woman in the yellow dress stopped and looked back at Qin Chuan, who was approaching her. She said indifferently, "What's the matter?" Hearing the voice of the woman in the yellow dress, Qin Chuan's eyes flashed with a touch of astonishment. This voice was also very familiar. "Excuse me, have we met somewhere before?" Qin Chuan looked at the woman in the yellow dress and said very seriously, "I feel that you are very familiar. Can you take off your veil and let me have a look at you?" Facing Qin Chuan's somewhat rude request, the woman in the yellow dress's eyes immediately flashed with a touch of coldness. She said in a cold voice, "Get lost. I'm not deliberately flirting with you. I'm serious." Seeing that the woman in the yellow dress was so unfriendly to him, Qin Chuan hurriedly explained, "I just feel that you are very similar to an old friend of mine, so before Qin Chuan could finish his words, the woman in the yellow dress had already raised her hand impatiently and waved her palm at Qin Chuan. A terrifying sharp metal chi brazenly attacked Qin Chuan, causing Qin Chuan's expression to change abruptly. He immediately used the thunder evasion to open up the distance between them. What a powerful attack! Qin Chuan looked at the sharp metal chi that crashed into the ground with a loud bang and said in surprise, "This casual attack is so terrifying. Could it be that this person is a powerful cultivator at the Dongshu stage?" Buzz. While Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the rune sword in his brain suddenly reminded him that this was the acute metal path. After being reminded by the runic sword, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned, and then he said with slight shock, "You're saying that the palm strike that woman executed earlier contained the energy of the Tao? But shouldn't Tao runes be used as the core of a talisman array? How could it be used as spiritual energy?" Qin Chuan didn't understand, but the runic sword gave a reasonable explanation. The reason why the woman in yellow could use the power of Tao runes as spiritual power was because she herself was a Tao rune. Qin Chuan could not help but look at the woman in the yellow dress when he heard the explanation of the runic sword. He revealed a look of disbelief and cried out involuntarily, "This woman is Dao One? A humanoid Dao Rune?" It was no wonder that Qin Chuan found it hard to believe. This was simply too outrageous. Although it was said that everything could evolve into a Dao Rune, how could a living person become a Dao Rune? Although he had only seen 2 Dao Runes with his own eyes, he had never heard of the existence of humanoid Dao Runes in the universe. Qin Chuan wasn't the only one who felt incredulous. Even the runic sword felt very strange. Previously, it had sensed that the woman in yellow dress was an ordinary person. However, when the woman in yellow dress attacked, it sensed that the woman in yellow dress had suddenly turned into a Dao Rune. And when the woman in yellow dress withdrew her power and stopped attacking, in its perception, she became an ordinary person again. This kind of back-and-forth change was really strange. Just when Qin Chuan and the runic sword were shocked by the fact that the woman in yellow dress was a Dao Rune, the woman in yellow dress did not continue to pursue Qin Chuan. She turned around and left. Obviously, the previous attack was just a warning to Qin Chuan, telling him not to pursue her anymore. If Qin Chuan continued to pursue her, he might die a miserable death. Qin Chuan stood in the air and watched the woman in yellow dress leave. He only landed on the ground when she was out of sight. He was still thinking about everything that had just happened. "Big brother, are you sure that woman is a Dao Rune?" Qin Chuan's expression was subtle. Could this be the first humanoid Dao Rune in history? The runic sword immediately responded. He was sure that the woman was the acute metal Dao Rune, and she was also the first humanoid Dao Rune he had encountered. After receiving the runic sword's response, Qin Chuan's expression changed slightly. He asked, "If other people find out about the woman's identity, will she become a target for capture?" Facing Qin Chuan's worries and doubts, the runic sword responded again. The possibility of this happening was very high. "No, I have to confirm her identity." Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to the runic sword, "Can you still perceive her whereabouts? I have to catch up with her. Even if I get hurt, I have to confirm whether my feeling is right or not." However, it was a pity that when the woman in yellow dress did not reveal her acute metal chi, the runic sword could not detect her whereabouts. It would be difficult for Qin Chuan to catch up with the woman in yellow dress now. This result was really hard for Qin Chuan to accept. "Is it you or not?" Qin Chuan looked in the direction where the woman in yellow dress left with a complicated expression. His heart was full of emotions. 10 days had passed since the ancient human ruins were opened. During these 10 days, Qin Chuan kept exploring the place where the 5 elemental charm arrays gathered. On one hand, he hoped to break more Earth attribute charm arrays to obtain more rewards. On the other hand, he hoped to see the woman in yellow dress again. His original plan of going to the Tower of Babel had been put on hold indefinitely. Just as Qin Chuan was looking around for the woman in yellow dress, a golden pillar of light suddenly shot up into the sky from the distant wasteland, emitting an extremely shocking energy fluctuation. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people immediately gathered in that direction, wanting to see what was going on. "There's such a big commotion over there. Maybe she'll also go over to take a look." Thinking of this, Qin Chuan no longer hesitated and immediately rushed toward the place where the pillar of light was. Just as Qin Chuan and the others were moving toward the place where the pillar of light was, a dispute was happening there. "You people from the Hulk organization don't go too far. Although you're a big force, the forces behind us aren't to be trifled with either." Jensen glared angrily at the people from the Hulk organization standing in front of him. Their bodies were huge and their skin was green. If it wasn't for the fact that his strength didn't allow him to, he would really want to tear the other party to pieces. They were the ones who discovered the ruins first, and they were also the ones who found the clues and found the location of the treasure. However, these people from the Hulk organization suddenly appeared and wanted to steal their treasure. Since you know that we're from the Hulk organization, then you should know that we're never afraid of any trouble. Not to mention you little guys, even if the people from the Metropolis government were here, we'd still dare to attack." The leader of the Hulk organization laughed coldly. "Treasures have always been obtained by those who are capable. You don't have the strength and can't protect this treasure. Who can you blame? My name is Nua Hansen. If you're not convinced, you can wait until you leave this place and bring the forces behind you to seek justice from me." Chapter 989. Hearing Nua Hansen's words, Jansen was about to explode. By that time, it would be too late. Besides, their family might not really dare to offend the Hulk Corporation. After all, this was the ancient human ruins. If they wanted to obtain treasures, they had to rely on their own ability. If they didn't have the ability to protect the treasures that belonged to them, who could they blame? Facing Nua Hansen's tyranny, Jansen gnashed his teeth and said, "There are a total of 3 treasure chests here. We only want one of them." This was already the last concession Jansen could make. If Nua Hansen still wasn't satisfied with this condition, then no matter what, he would fight with Nua Hansen. Even if he couldn't kill Nua Hansen, he would make Nua Hansen suffer a little. Although Jansen's side had a total of 8 people, and Nua Hansen's side only had 3 people, Nua Hansen wasn't afraid of Jansen at all. He laughed and said to Jansen, "If you 8 trash can beat the 3 of us, then why don't we give all 3 treasure chests to you? But do you have the strength and courage to do so?" Hearing Nua Hansen's unrestrained ridicule, the faces of the people around Jansen became extremely unsightly. This was the first time they were looked down upon like this. "Jansen, let's fight it out with them. Even if both sides suffer losses and let others take advantage of us, we absolutely can't let them take advantage of us." "That's right, let's fight it out with them. They're only late deity transformation stage. The 3 of us against 1, I don't believe we can't beat them." Just as Jansen's side was still clamoring to attack, Nua Hansen's side chose to make the first move. They suddenly launched an attack on Jansen's side. Terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations instantly submerged Jansen's side. Caught off guard, 2 of Jansen's side were injured in the blink of an eye. The rest could only defend themselves. For a moment, their formation was in chaos. Seeing Jansen's side's performance, Nua Hansen immediately laughed loudly and said proudly, "Is this the basis of your confidence? How laughable! What can you ant-like fellows use to fight with us?" Facing Nua Hansen's humiliation, Jansen's face could be said to be gloomy to the extreme. If not for Nua Hansen's side's sudden attack, how could they be in such a sorry state? But now, besides provoking Nua Hansen's merciless ridicule, there was no other use for him to say this. And just as Nua Hansen's side was suppressing Jansen's side, people who saw the commotion and rushed to rush over. The first time, they saw the 3 dazzling golden treasure chests to be sandwiched between Nua Hansen's side and Jansen's side. "There's really a treasure here. Everyone, Jansen to Hansen to Hansen to Jansen's to say, the ruins to be ins to fight break to sends to come to fight break Hansen's. Hansen's to be a, these people to be expected to be a fight. To say to be to the end to be. To the be. Nununudo tesses est s, t to be to fight. Why are the people at the edge so crazy? Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, more people rushed over from afar. These people wanted to rush to the center of the ruins, but before they could get far, they were stopped and the fight started. Seeing this, Qin Chuan finally understood why there were so many fights breaking out. Many people were stopped halfway. Thinking of this, Qin Chuan's figure suddenly flashed, and he quickly rushed to the center of the ruins. In the process, there were people who noticed Qin Chuan's tracks and wanted to stop him, but Qin Chuan easily dodged them. Qin Chuan arrived at the center of the ruins unimpeded, and he finally understood why everyone was fighting. The battle at the center of the ruins was definitely the most intense and chaotic. From the looks of it, there were at least 5 forces fighting here. Among them, Qin Chuan recognized the Hulk Corporation and the Heavenly Travel Union, which he once had a grudge with. As for the other 3 forces, one of them was completely covered by the Hulk Corporation's spiritual energy fluctuations, making it hard for others to see them clearly. Qin Chuan also didn't recognize the other 2 forces. Everyone sensed Qin Chuan's arrival. When they saw Qin Chuan's appearance, the people of the Heavenly Travel Union immediately became excited and shouted, "It's that wanted criminal. Immediately send a signal to Deacon Moses and have him come quickly." Hearing the shouts of the people of the Heavenly Travel Union, the people fighting suddenly stopped and looked at Qin Chuan. This is the guy who has the ability to break through by himself? Catch him. A force that Qin Chuan didn't recognize suddenly gave up on the opponent in front of him and turned to attack Qin Chuan. Faced with this sudden development, Qin Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he knew that this would happen, he wouldn't have shown up so early. "Qin Chuan, save me!" At this moment, an extremely miserable cry for help suddenly sounded not far away. Qin Chuan looked over and saw Ao Feng, who had lost both his legs, on the ground. He couldn't help but frown slightly. However, Qin Chuan didn't have time to care about Ao Feng because the unfamiliar force had already arrived in front of him and introduced themselves. "Qin Chuan, I recognize you. Our 9th Mountain admires you very much. As long as you are willing to join us, we will spare your life." The leader looked at Qin Chuan. "I am an outer elder of the 9th Mountain, Rue Xiang. I am a man of my word." Qin Chuan grinned at Rue Xiang's words and replied, "All right, now that I know who you are, if you continue to attack me and fail to kill me, you 9th Mountain disciples will have to be careful in these ruins. Don't ever run into me." "Are you threatening me?" Rue Xiang was furious. "Attack." Following Rue Xiang's order, the 5 people surrounding Qin Chuan immediately moved. They were experts in joint attacks and wanted to completely trap Qin Chuan in the middle. Qin Chuan laughed when he saw this. His figure flashed outside and he said to Rue Xiang, "Your joint attack doesn't seem to work. Elder, our joint attack can seal space." He actually escaped from the space we sealed just now. The 9th Mountain disciple looked at Qin Chuan in astonishment. This is the first time someone below the Dongshu stage has broken through our joint attack so easily. Rue Xiang snorted at the disciple's words. "You're all trash. Let me do it." Before he even finished speaking, Rue Xiang had already tossed a high-grade Dao artifact, Golden Top Mountain, at Qin Chuan. This mountain could change in size and weight according to its owner's will. Once pressed down by this mountain, even those with innate divine strength wouldn't be able to escape. Chapter 990. Qin Chuan grinned when he saw Rue Xiang toss out the Golden Peak Mountain. "Elder Rue Xiang, your Dao artifact isn't much. It's not even a little bit inferior to that guy's heaven locking rope." Although the Golden Peak Mountain was extremely heavy, it was very clumsy when moving. Qin Chuan easily dodged it. At that moment, the Golden Peak Mountain suddenly turned around and accelerated towards Qin Chuan. Moreover, it suddenly turned into a 1,000 zhang tall mountain and brazenly pressed down on Qin Chuan. Seeing that Qin Chuan was enveloped by the Golden Peak Mountain, Rue Xiang laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, you've been tricked. I was just deliberately setting up a trap. Although my Golden Peak Mountain is only a high-grade Dao artifact, it's enough to suppress you. Suppress him." Following Rue Xiang's angry roar, the Golden Peak Mountain pressed down on Qin Chuan to the ground. Facing the suppression of the Golden Peak Mountain, Qin Chuan seemed to have lost all ability to resist. He was easily pressed to the ground. Following a series of rumbling sounds, the ground split apart. Seeing that Qin Chuan had been suppressed by the Golden Peak Mountain, the disciples of the Ninth Mountain immediately turned to Rue Xiang and said, "Congratulations, Elder, congratulations, Elder." Rue Xiang smiled very proudly and arrogantly said to the people of the Sky Travel Union, "You can send a message to Moses and tell him not to come over. Qin Chuan is now our Ninth Mountain's captive. Once we're done using him, we'll naturally take him to the Sky Travel Union to exchange for rewards." Ah! Seeing Rue Xiang's arrogant appearance, the people of the Sky Travel Union were helpless. They originally thought that Qin Chuan could hold on until Moses arrived. They didn't expect that Qin Chuan would be defeated by Rue Xiang in one move. He didn't have any ability to resist at all. Speaking of which, if Qin Chuan only had this much strength, how did he escape from Moses's hands back then? At that moment, Nua Hansen's angry roar came from behind everyone. "Bastard!" Everyone subconsciously turned their heads to look at No Hansen. Following his gaze, they looked at the stone table where the 3 treasure chests were placed. When they saw that the largest treasure chest in the middle had already disappeared, everyone's expression immediately became somewhat startled. What had just happened? Why did a treasure chest suddenly disappear? Just as everyone was thinking about this, No Hansen angrily attacked a shadow in the ruins. Facing No Hansen's angry attack, a figure had no choice but to walk out from the shadow and dodge No Hansen's attack. When everyone saw the appearance of this person, they were all dumbfounded. The person holding the treasure chest was actually Qin Chuan. Hey, big guy, what are you doing?" Qin Chuan smiled and said to No Hansen, "A total of 3 treasure chests. I only took 1, aren't there still 2 more? If you had stealthily made a move just now, those 2 treasure chests would have been yours. I really don't know why you were so stupid as to insist on shouting." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the originally furious No Hansen couldn't help but stare blankly. Previously, everyone's attention had been attracted by Rue Xiang's Golden Peak Mountain. Indeed, no one had paid attention to the treasure chests on the stone table. If he had taken advantage of the opportunity to make a move, he would definitely have been able to take all the treasure chests for himself. At that time, if he had forcefully broken through, there wouldn't be many people who could have stopped him. Seeing the remorseful expression on No Hansen's face, Qin Chuan grinned and said, "How about it? Do you feel that you're very stupid now?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, No Hansen immediately became furious. He angrily roared at Qin Chuan, "Bastard, I'll kill you! In any case, I've already obtained a treasure. I'll slip away. If you chase after me, you might even lose those 2 treasure chests." While speaking, Qin Chuan's figure had already flown away. Seeing this, No Hansen hesitated. If they were to chase after Qin Chuan now, they might really end up with nothing. However, if they stayed here, they might also end up with nothing. For a moment, No Hansen actually didn't know what to do. Qin Chuan. Just when Qin Chuan thought that he could take advantage of the opportunity to slip away, the furious Moses finally arrived. He roared and waved his palm at Qin Chuan, forcing Qin Chuan to stop. "I've been looking for you for a long time." Moses gloomily stared at Qin Chuan and angrily said, "Hand over the heaven sealing rope and I'll leave you with an intact corpse." Facing the furious Moses, Qin Chuan grinned and replied, "Don't even think about the heaven sealing rope. Speaking of which, what treasure did you bring today? You can show it to me." Seeing Qin Chuan being so arrogant, Moses was really angry. Just as he was about to attack, a golden mountain suddenly fell from the sky and suppressed Qin Chuan. Seeing this, Qin Chuan's figure flashed and appeared on top of the golden mountain. He looked at Rue Xiang helplessly and asked, "Are you bored? How is this possible?" Rue Xiang stared at Qin Chuan. He clearly saw Qin Chuan being suppressed by the golden mountain. How could Qin Chuan have escaped and snatched a treasure chest without anyone noticing? What's so impossible about that? Your Dao artifact is really lousy. Qin Chuan smiled. If I didn't want to use you as a cover to snatch the treasure chest, do you think I would have let you be so smug? Hearing Qinchuan's words, Rue Xiang was furious. He waved his hand and summoned another Dao artifact. This time, however, it was a top-grade Dao artifact. Moreover, it was an offensive top-grade Dao artifact. Golden Scissors. Go! As Rue Xiang waved his hand, the golden scissors shot toward Qinchuan like a bolt of golden lightning and cut at Qinchuan's neck with murderous intent. While Rue Xiang was attacking Qinchuan, Moses also attacked Qinchuan. This time, he directly used his trump card. The Law of Water. The power of the ocean, help me trap the enemy. As Moses roared, countless water droplets suddenly appeared around Qinchuan. Each of these water droplets weighed over 500 kilograms. They attached themselves to Qinchuan's body, causing Qinchuan to feel immense pressure. His movement speed suddenly became extremely slow, not much faster than a tortoise's. Whoosh! The golden scissors were about to reach Qinchuan. Unexpectedly, a silver longsword suddenly appeared in front of Qinchuan and blocked the golden scissors' path. Ninth Heaven Falling Galaxy. Qinchuan let out a low roar, and stars suddenly appeared in the sky. The endless starlight gathered together and turned into an astonishing sword intent that slashed towards Moses. You want to hurt me with a mere sword intent? In the face of Qinchuan's counterattack, Moses sneered. He immediately used his hand as a knife and slashed at the Milky Way sword intent descending from the sky. A terrifying spiritual energy soared into the sky, like a long dragon, and actually cut the Milky Way sword intent in half. Just as Moses was feeling pleased with himself, a golden sword intent suddenly shot out from the broken Milky Way sword intent and charged straight at Moses. Chapter 991. It could be said that Moses was quite familiar with the golden sword intent. Last time, he had almost died under the golden sword intent. This time, he would not fall at the same place twice. Sky Luo Umbrella. Moses roared. He raised his hand and summoned a large golden umbrella to protect himself. Qinchuan's god's sword intent struck the surface of the umbrella, but it didn't cause any damage. Moreover, the surface of the umbrella seemed to have the ability to absorb all kinds of energy. If Qinchuan hadn't withdrawn the god's sword intent in time, the power of the god's sword intent would have been completely absorbed by the umbrella. A sacred artifact. At this moment, Qinchuan realized that Moses' Sky Luo umbrella must be a sacred artifact. Hey, big brother, you're going too far. You're actually using a sacred artifact against a mere mid-soul formation cultivator like me. Qinchuan ridiculed Moses, but in reality, he was having a headache. Sacred artifacts weren't easy to deal with. If he wasn't careful, he might really end up in a ditch. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the Sky Luo umbrella in Moses' hand. This umbrella belonged to the Vice President of the Heavenly Federation, Jit. They didn't expect that Moses would borrow the umbrella from Jit to deal with Qinchuan. With the umbrella, it would be difficult for Qinchuan to escape from Moses' grasp. Aofeng, who originally wanted to ask Qinchuan for help, immediately shut his mouth when he saw that Qinchuan was in danger. He was afraid that Rue Xiang and Moses would come looking for trouble after dealing with Qinchuan. However, he didn't know that in the eyes of Rue Xiang and Moses, he was nothing more than an ant. From beginning to end, they didn't care about him at all. Just when everyone thought that Qinchuan would die under the joint attack of Rue Xiang and Moses, Qinchuan growled and said to Rue Xiang, "Since you want to kill me, then I won't be polite to you." Amidst his furious roar, a wisp of lightning suddenly erupted from the depths of Qinchuan's eyes, and then Rue Xiang let out a shrill cry. Lightning erupted from his body, and it actually instantly transformed him into ash. Everyone couldn't help but gasp at the sight of Rue Xiang's ashes. Their faces were filled with shock. Just what did Qin Chuan do? How could he instantly kill a late-stage soul formation cultivator like Rue Xiang? Although Moses had heard that Qin Chuan had the ability to instantly kill people, he had never seen it with his own eyes. He couldn't help but break out in cold sweat when he saw Rue Xiang's fate. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Humph. Originally, I didn't want to start a massacre, but you forced me to do so. Qin Chuan coldly snorted. He turned his gaze to Moses and deliberately said, "If it weren't for the heavenly Luo umbrella protecting you, you would have met the same fate as Rue Xiang." Moses heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Qin Chuan's words. It turned out that Qin Chuan's strange ability to instantly kill people couldn't break through the heavenly Luo umbrella's defenses. He was relieved. Now that Rue Xiang was dead, the Golden Peak Mountain and Golden Scissors lost their master and fell to the ground in their original forms. Qin Chuan used his spiritual power to shake off the water droplets on his body. He then reached out and grabbed the scissors and Golden Peak Mountain. He turned to Moses and said, "Moses, it was you from the Heavenly Travel Union who violated my interests first, so I was forced to retaliate. We came here to search for treasures, not to fight. If you must make trouble for me, why don't you wait until we leave this place? I'll be waiting for you at Two Mountain Villa." Moses was shocked when he heard Qin Chuan mention Two Mountain Villa. He hurriedly asked, "What's your relationship with the Tushan family?" Qin Chuan didn't answer Moses's question. Instead, he replied, "You can ask the Tushan family about that." "Are you lying to me?" Moses coldly said, "If you're really from the Tushan family, why did you call yourself a rogue cultivator when you first met me?" If Qin Chuan had revealed his identity earlier, they might not have had this conflict. In Moses's opinion, Qin Chuan couldn't do anything to the heavenly Luo umbrella, so he wanted to use the name of the Tushan family to scare him away. The others were already shocked by Qin Chuan's strange method of killing Rue Xiang. Now that they heard Qin Chuan mention the Tushan family, they were even more afraid of Qin Chuan. They began to guess what position Qin Chuan had in the Tushan family. Before, Qin Chuan didn't want to scare people with the name of Tushan family. But now, he was in a tight encirclement, and he didn't know how many people would come over later. If he couldn't get out of here in time, he would be in trouble once those powerful forces set their eyes on him and wanted to use him to break the seal. "I've already said that. It's up to you to believe me or not." Qin Chuan took a deep look at Moses. "If you continue to pester me, even the heavenly Luo umbrella won't be able to protect you." Moses couldn't help but hesitate when he saw Qin Chuan's aggressive look. He didn't know if he should continue to fight with Qin Chuan. At this moment, someone suddenly said, "Deacon Moses, he's lying to you. He has nothing to do with the Tushan family." When they heard this voice, everyone subconsciously turned their gazes towards the person who had shouted. The person who had spoken was none other than Jian Sen. Facing Moses's gaze, Jansen said loudly, "I know him. His name is Qin Chuan. He's from the same galaxy. He's a humanoid. He's not a member of the Tushan family." Hearing Jansen's words, Moses immediately narrowed his eyes and asked, "Can you guarantee that what you're saying is true?" Jansen nodded vigorously, then grabbed Oberon, who had fallen to the ground, and said to Moses, "Deacon Moses, this is the future master of the Sane Galaxy, the eldest Prince Oberon. He and Qin Chuan are old acquaintances. He knows Qin Chuan very well. He told us all the information I know. Everyone in the fraternity here can testify." "That's right, Qin Chuan is from the Sane Galaxy. He has nothing to do with the Tushan family. Qin Chuan is lying. Oberon knows him. He's not a member of the Tushan family. Deacon Moses, we're willing to swear on our lives that what we said is true. We hope that Deacon Moses can protect us on account of us exposing Qin Chuan." Everyone in the fraternity fought to expose Qinchuan's lies and tried their best to curry favor with Moses, hoping that Moses could save their lives and prevent the Hulk corporations from continuing to attack them. Hearing their words, Moses slowly turned his gaze to Oberon and asked, "You're the eldest prince of the same galaxy? Who exactly is Qinchuan?" Faced with Moses's questioning and the pressure from his companions in the fraternity, Oberon lowered his head and said in a low voice, "What they said is true. The Tushan family's recruitment of Qinchuan was done in secret. Even Oberon didn't know. Qinchuan had never mentioned this to Oberon. Otherwise, Oberon would never have said such a thing and cut off his own path of retreat. Chapter 992. Hearing Ao Feng's answer to Moses, Qinchuan looked at Ao Feng with a complicated gaze. He thought that even if he could no longer be friends with Ao Feng, they could at least be strangers. However, the truth was that Ao Feng betrayed him without hesitation in order to survive. Ao Feng. Qinchuan took a deep breath and said to Ao Feng, "Since things have come to this, I have nothing more to say. We are no longer friends." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Ao Feng's face showed a hint of shame. However, he quickly raised his head and stared at Qinchuan with a ferocious gaze. He said loudly, "I had no choice. I only wanted to protect myself. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for provoking a force that you shouldn't have." "You are really twisting words and forcing logic," Qinchuan sneered. "Don't worry, I won't blame you. Because you are not worthy. Alright, let's end the small talk here. Let's get down to business." Moses suddenly interrupted the conversation between Qinchuan and Ao Feng. He stared coldly at Qinchuan. While using the Sky Luo umbrella to protect himself, he was also prepared to attack Qinchuan. In the face of Moses' undisguised killing intent, Qinchuan was extremely calm. It was as if he was a completely different person from before. "No matter what trump card you have, with the Sky Luo umbrella in my hand, I am invincible." Moses roared and waved his hand. A powerful wave of spiritual energy instantly surged towards Qinchuan. It was like an endless wave. Today, even if Qinchuan was as solid as a reef, he would still smash Qinchuan into pieces. In the face of Moses' attack, Qinchuan immediately inscribed the 5 elements rotation charm array and used the wild sand charm array to resist Moses' attack. Although the power of the charm array was only at level 4, it was barely able to withstand Moses' attack by relying on the fact that earth countered water. What a strange combination of glyphs. It actually contains the attributes of the 5 elements. However, it's only at level 4. It's nothing to worry about. Although Moses was somewhat interested in the combination of the 5 elements rotation charm array inscribed by Qinchuan, it was only a little interest. It did not prevent him from killing Qinchuan. Sand might be able to withstand waves after waves, but it definitely couldn't withstand the sudden arrival of a vast ocean. Crash! With a thought from Qinchuan, countless small water droplets suddenly appeared in the sky. These small water droplets gathered together and condensed into a vast ocean that covered the sky and the sun. The water droplets poured down wantonly towards Qinchuan. In the blink of an eye, Qinchuan was submerged, and the entire ruins turned into a boundless ocean. Just when Moses felt that victory was in his grasp and Qinchuan was bound to lose, a golden light suddenly appeared from the depths of the sea. This golden light penetrated the barrier of the sea in an instant and hit the heavenly Luo umbrella in front of Moses. 1. The heavenly Luo umbrella was unable to withstand the attack and was bounced off with a bang. Seeing that the heavenly Luo umbrella was sent flying by the golden light, the smile on Moses' face suddenly froze. There was a touch of horror in his eyes as he cried out involuntarily, "What is this?" A roar from the depths of the sea answered Moses' question. Heavenly light. Without the protection of the heavenly Luo umbrella, Moses was completely exposed. His abdomen was accurately pierced by the heavenly light. The golden light was like a golden flame, but it still quickly melted Moses' body. Not even his soul was spared. No, no. Sensing the fatal crisis, Moses' face became completely terrified. He screamed in despair, but no one could save him. The vast sea slowly dissipated, revealing the ruins to everyone once again. Qin, who had been drowned by the sea earlier, appeared in front of everyone once again. Looking at the cold expression on Qin's face, everyone's eyes were filled with deep fear. Even the forces that had never provoked Qin before were extremely fearful at this moment, afraid that Qin would suddenly attack them. Moses, who was at the peak of the soul formation stage, couldn't even last long against Qin with the heavenly Luo umbrella, let alone them. The people of the fraternity had the most complicated feelings right now. They had thought that Moses would definitely be able to defeat Qin with the power of the heavenly Luo umbrella and the suppression of his realm, or even kill Qin. However, the reality was that Moses had died at Qin's hands. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it at all. Qin ignored everyone. He slowly walked to the place where the heavenly Luo umbrella had fallen and wanted to take it away. However, the heavenly Luo umbrella struggled violently, as if it didn't want to fall into Qin's hands. Qin snorted coldly when he saw this. He immediately injected an incomparably powerful mental force into the heavenly Luo umbrella and used an extremely barbaric method to erase the mental imprint that the heavenly Luo umbrella's vice president, Kit, had left on it, forcibly turning it into an ownerless object. This time, the heavenly Luo umbrella didn't struggle and allowed Qin to take it away. When everyone saw Qin's actions, subtle expressions appeared on their faces. They knew in their hearts that after this battle, the hatred between Qin and the heavenly Luo alliance could be said to be irreconcilable. Perhaps the next person who attacked Qin wouldn't be these low-level deacons, but a powerful cultivator at the Dongshu stage. Qin, the heavenly Luo umbrella is the treasure of our heavenly Luo alliance's vice president, Kit Yu. Pooh. Before this person could finish speaking, he had already been slapped to death by Qin. The rest of the people from the heavenly Luo alliance weren't able to escape this calamity. They all died in the blink of an eye at Qin's hands. Since he had already formed a great enmity with the heavenly Luo alliance, Qin naturally wouldn't let these people leave. When everyone saw Qin kill the people from the heavenly Luo alliance without saying a word, their expressions became somewhat grave. However, Qin didn't casually attack again. Instead, he slowly walked to the stone table and put away the other two small treasure chests. When the other powers saw Qin's actions, they had no intention of stopping him. After putting away the other two small treasure chests, Qin said indifferently, "Elder Rue Xiang of the 9-layer mountain attacked me first. He deserved to die. Does anyone else of the 9-layer mountain have any objections?" Facing Qin's question, the other disciples of the 9-layer mountain immediately shook their heads and replied, "We have no objections to Senior's words. Elder Rui Xiang deserved to die." At this moment, in order to protect themselves, they couldn't care less about face. As long as they followed Qin's words, they could save their lives. Even if he asked them to curse the 9-layer mountain's inner elders, it wouldn't matter. When everyone saw how Qin dealt with the 9-layer mountain, they all let out a huge sigh of relief. From this point, it wasn't hard to see that Qin was a very principled person. His killing intent was only directed at those who had attacked him before. Previously, these people only stood to the side to watch the show and didn't make a move against Qin. Presumably, Qin wouldn't make things difficult for them. However, some people didn't have such good luck. Chapter 993. Qin, we were wrong, we know we were wrong. Jansen was the first to betray Qinchuan, and he was also the first to beg for mercy from Qinchuan. He looked at Qinchuan in horror, and his knees went soft as he knelt in front of Qinchuan. If kneeling could save his life, he was willing to kneel for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing Jansen's behavior, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a look of disgust. He hadn't even thought about dealing with the fraternity, but Jansen had already knelt and begged for mercy. What a disgrace to the cultivation world, a scum! The others were also very disdainful of Jansen's behavior. In their view, Qinchuan definitely wouldn't let the fraternity off. Since they were going to die either way, they might as well die standing. Kneeling and begging for mercy was meaningless apart from being looked down upon. Why? Why are you so strong? Because of Jansen's kneeling, Ao Feng fell to the ground again. He looked at Qinchuan in confusion, as if seeking an answer. Faced with Ao Feng's question, Qinchuan looked deeply at Ao Feng and replied, "In the past, you've answered many of my questions. Today, I'll also answer one of yours. The reason I'm strong is not only because of my talent, but also because of my temperament and my principles. Friends are friends and enemies are enemies. Even if I die, I won't betray my friends. Only with a firm heart can you go against the flow." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Ao Feng couldn't help but reveal a look of deep regret. He closed his eyes slightly and said to Qinchuan, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I already know I was wrong. You kill me." Qinchuan didn't hesitate at all when he heard this. He raised his hand and slapped Ao Feng. The moment the spirit force fluctuation was released, Ao Feng, who was on the ground begging for death, suddenly opened his eyes and struggled to dodge Qinchuan's attack. However, the spirit force fluctuation was too fast for him to dodge. Bang! Ao Feng's body instantly exploded under this wave of spiritual energy and turned into ashes. His soul was also destroyed and completely disappeared from this world. At first, I thought that you really realized your mistake and wanted to use your death to make up for it. I didn't expect that you would say that on purpose to arouse my sympathy for you. While Ao Feng was struggling, Qinchuan understood Ao Feng's true intentions. He was glad that he was not a soft-hearted person. If he had let Ao Feng go earlier, Ao Feng might have betrayed him again, or even more brazenly. When Jansen saw Qinchuan killing Ao Feng without any hesitation, he finally understood that Qinchuan would not let him go. Just as he was about to resist, the remaining heavenly tribulation energy in his body suddenly erupted and turned him into ashes. When the other members of the fraternity saw that Jansen was also dead, they finally broke down and fled in all directions. However, Qinchuan did not let a single one of them go. He killed all 6 of them with his sword. When Qinchuan killed the members of the fraternity, the various forces around the ruins had already gathered. When they learned what had happened from the others, they were all shocked. Deacon Moses of the Heavenly Path Federation was still killed by Qinchuan even though he was using the Heavenly Luo umbrella. This Qinchuan was a little too strong. He was practically invincible among the soul formation stage. For a moment, everyone was asking around about Qinchuan. At that moment, Qinchuan suddenly rose into the air and quickly flew into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Be ******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** suddenly angry roar came from a luxurious tent. A tall figure waved his hand and smashed all the exquisite artwork in the tent to the ground. He still could not vent the anger in his heart. What on earth is that trash Moses doing? Why was the spiritual imprint I left in the heavenly Luo umbrella erased? Jit was furious. The heavenly Luo umbrella was one of his favorite holy artifacts, and also one of his symbols in Tron Nebula. In his opinion, with Moses' strength at the peak of the soul formation stage and the heavenly Luo umbrella, as long as he didn't run into a Dongshu stage cultivator, he definitely wouldn't be in any danger. Even if those Dongshu stage cultivators didn't give Moses face, They should be able to recognize the origin of the heavenly Luo umbrella and give him face. But now, the heavenly Luo umbrella had been lost. Just as Jit was about to fly into a rage, someone suddenly approached the tent and said to Jit, "Sir Vice President, Deacon Moses' life tablet has been shattered." Hearing his subordinate's report, Jit's face suddenly turned ugly. He said in a low voice, "Could it be that Moses accidentally provoked an old Dongshu stage guy? Go, get to the bottom of this immediately." Yes. The subordinate obeyed and left. Jit stayed in the tent for a moment before getting up and rushing out. He had to investigate this matter himself. After leaving the ruins, Qin headed south for 2 days before finding a relatively hidden cave to stop. He was ready to check his spoils of war. Qin sat in the cave and looked at the heavenly Luo umbrella in his hand, which was emitting a faint golden light. He couldn't help but reveal a touch of joy on his face. He said in a low voice, "Although this heavenly Luo umbrella is only a low-grade holy artifact, it's a very rare defensive holy artifact. Its value is even higher than some middle-grade holy artifact. To be able to obtain such a treasure, this trip to the ruins was not in vain. But fortunately, Moses isn't the owner of this heavenly Luo umbrella, so he can't fully display the power of the heavenly Luo umbrella. Otherwise, I might not be his match. Although the heavenly Luo umbrella is a holy artifact, its power is not false. However, in Moses's hands, he can only display 50% of its power. Naturally, he won't be Tianguang's match." Qin branded his spiritual imprint on the heavenly Luo umbrella. Immediately, he formed a mental connection with the heavenly Luo umbrella. The longer the heavenly Luo umbrella was in his hands, the stronger the mental connection between him and the heavenly Luo umbrella. If someone's mental power wasn't as strong as his, even if they risked their life, they wouldn't be able to erase his spiritual imprint on the heavenly Luo umbrella. This heavenly Luo umbrella can be considered the compensation given to me by the Heavenly Travel Union after repeatedly offending me. Qin smiled and muttered to himself. Then, he took out the 3 treasure chests he obtained from the ruins. He was very curious about the treasures hidden in the 3 treasure chests. Qin first opened the 2 small treasure chests. These 2 small treasure chests each contained 2 bottles of pills. One bottle contained a type of pill that Qin didn't recognize. The other bottle contained a heavenly heart pill. It's actually another heavenly heart pill. Qin looked at the milky white pill in his hand. His face couldn't help but reveal a look of pleasant surprise. Including this heavenly heart pill, he already had 2 heavenly heart pills. It was enough to raise his strength to the peak of divine transformation stage. Now that I've snatched the heavenly Luo umbrella, the Heavenly Travel Union will definitely send out Dongshu stage experts to deal with me. I have to raise my strength as soon as possible. Qin looked at the heavenly heart pill in his hand and swallowed it without hesitation. Chapter 994. Just as Qin was calmly refining the heavenly heart pill's medicinal effects, the events of the Battle of the Ruins had also spread throughout the ruins through the mouths of others. Qin had become famous after this battle. If it weren't for the fact that so many people had witnessed the battle between Qin and Moses, no one would believe that a mere mid-divine transformation cultivator could kill a peak divine transformation cultivator with a defensive sacred artifact. Furthermore, it was a head-on battle, not a sneak attack. All of a sudden, all the forces were investigating Qin's background. The fact that Qin had said, "I'll be waiting for you at 2 Mountain Villa," had also become the focus of all the forces. At the Tushan clan's camp, Tushan Lei and Tushan Hao sat across from each other, drinking tea as they discussed the battle in the ruins. "Fourth brother, this Qin really isn't simple. Even though Moses is only at the peak divine transformation stage and isn't considered strong among peak divine transformation cultivators, He has Kit's Heavenly Luo umbrella. I dare say that with the Heavenly Luo umbrella, he can be considered invincible among divine transformation cultivators. Even so, he still lost to Qin Chuan. He didn't even manage to keep his life. Tushan Lei put down his teacup. How did Qin Chuan do it? I don't know either. It's a pity that seventh brother didn't come with us. He knows Qin Chuan the best. Perhaps he knows something. Tushan Hao looked at Tushan Lei and asked, "What do you think we should do? Continue to remain silent, or admit the relationship between Qin Chuan and our Tushan clan?" Even though remaining silent wouldn't cause any trouble, it would definitely make Qin Chuan unhappy. This wasn't something the Tushan clan wanted to see. If they openly supported Qin Chuan, they would definitely offend the Heavenly Travel Union. This wasn't something they wanted to see either. Unfortunately, there were very few things in this world that could satisfy both sides. They had to make a choice. There's no rush for now. Things haven't developed to the point where we have to make a choice yet. Tushan Lei chuckled. I really want to see how far Qin Chuan can go without the support of our Tushan family. If he can perform even better than the rumors say, not to mention the Heavenly Federation, even if we offend the Great Prefecture for him, so what? I get what you mean. Tushan Hao looked at Tushan Lei and said, but I'm worried that Jit might come to us. Humph. His own people are not capable enough to protect his Heavenly Luo umbrella. What's the use of us? Tushan Lei snorted coldly. Even if he brought people from the Metropolis Palace with him, my attitude would still be the same. Before Tushan Lei could finish his sentence, a loud voice came from outside the tent. Third Elder, Fourth Elder, General Hai Sang of the Great Metropolis and the Vice President of the Sky Travel Union, JIT, have come to visit. Hearing him, Tushan Lei slowly stood up and said to Tushan Hao, let's go and meet them. On the wasteland, 3 figures were sneakily crouching behind a rock. They were quietly using a reconnaissance aircraft to investigate the situation in a cave ahead. Nana, are you sure that there's a treasure in this cave? Her companion looked at the girl who was concentrating on controlling the reconnaissance aircraft and whispered, could it be that you're mistaken? Why can't I sense anything? I've already explained it countless times. The girl called Nana looked unhappy. You just don't believe me? It's not that I don't believe you, but this is too strange. How can there be a treasure in an ordinary cave? Her companion forced a smile. I'm just worried that your judgment might be wrong. I've already explained it. Yesterday, I saw with my own eyes that there was a flash of white light between the cracks of the boulders blocking the entrance of the cave. Nana said to her companion, Xiao Hu, if you don't believe me, then you can leave. All right, Xiao Hu, don't say any more. Let's just believe Nana. Anyway, we have nothing to do. If there really is a treasure in this cave, then wouldn't it be wonderful? Another companion saw that Xiao Hu still wanted to say something and hurriedly dissuaded him. Let's just listen to Nana's arrangement. Xiao Hu nodded helplessly and whispered, I understand. At this time, Nana had already returned with the reconnaissance aircraft. Through the reconnaissance aircraft's detection, they could basically confirm that there was no danger near the cave. They just didn't know if there was any danger in the cave. I deliberately used an obvious method like the reconnaissance aircraft to probe, but it didn't cause any reaction. This means that there should be no one in the cave. Let's go and take a look. Nana put away the reconnaissance aircraft and quickly approached the cave with her 2 companions. Looking at the huge boulder that was 2 meters tall blocking the entrance of the cave, she said to her 2 companions, Xiao Hu, Xiao Rue, the 2 of you stay away. I'll break this boulder. If anything unexpected happens, take me and run immediately. Nana, you have to be careful. Xiao Rue looked at Nana with some worry. Don't get hurt. Xiao Hu glanced at Nana and clenched his fist. He whispered, Why don't I do it? Nana ignored Xiao Hu. She raised her hand and swung her palm at the boulder, trying to shatter it. However, at this moment, the boulder suddenly flew toward Nana. Nana turned pale with fright when she saw this and hurriedly dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the impact of the boulder. At the same time, an extremely shocking energy fluctuation suddenly spread out from the cave. After sensing this energy fluctuation, Nana's face immediately became extremely frightened. She shouted, "Oh no! There's a cultivator at the pinnacle of the divine transformation stage in there. Let's go." Hearing Nana's words, Xiao Hu and Xiao Rue quickly turned around and prepared to run. However, before they could do anything, a cold voice suddenly came from the cave. "Everyone stay where you are or die!" Hearing this threat, Nana and the other two immediately stopped running. They didn't dare to make any more movements. Nana looked in the direction of the cave from the corner of her eyes and said loudly, "Senior, we didn't mean to offend you. We apologize here. Please forgive us and let us go." "Yeah, we didn't do it on purpose." Xiao, who was also a little scared, he said to the cave, We are from the Tushan clan." "Xiao Hu." Nana glared at Xiao Hu angrily. "We agreed not to use our clan's name when we're outside. How could you forget?" Hearing Nana's words, Xiao Hu was a little ashamed. He said, "Sorry, I was too nervous and forgot." "You're from the Tushan clan?" The person in the cave seemed to be a little surprised. He didn't expect to meet people from the Tushan clan here. As they spoke, the person in the cave slowly walked out and stood in front of Nana and the other two. When Nana saw the person's face, she couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. "It's you, Qin Chuan. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.